All right, cool. Peace and blessings in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, who is and was to come, the Almighty Maker of heaven and earth. Amen. Let me just sort out the audio here. Yep, it's the fault. Yeah, there we go. All right, so cool. I mean, we're back in this again. Tell a friend to tell a friend. And you can probably see the title says Bob loses the plot and Deuteronomy Insights. I should have put insights. I don't know why I put insight. That's my bad. But yeah, I mean, if you guys already don't know, we've been doing stuff over on TikTok. So not me specifically, obviously. It's not that Amy doesn't want to do stuff. It's just like she just doesn't do it. We will be going back to, by the way, just as an announcement, we will be going back to, of course, more things pertaining to live streams outside, stuff like that. I wanted to go back to live streaming for a while, and I would rather, of course, do that when we are ready. Of course, when the Lord permits it, we'll be back outside again, willing to do the work of the Lord, to the glory of the Lord. I mean, but I've been having so much interesting conversations over on TikTok, like conversations about atheistic presuppositions about reality. We've had Muslims on there, we've had JWs on there, so it's interesting. If you ain't already, following me on TikTok, then you're really missing out when it comes to what's going on over there. But yeah, I just want to start off by first thanking the Lord Jesus Christ, who's my deliverer, who's my guide, who over the last 6 years now. I mean, it's brilliant. I mean, I remember, of course, that first moment of being a Christian, how much my life really was changing, and of course, it has been a journey, and it still continues to be a journey because I'm not there yet. I'm not the finished article. And the Lord is pruning me. He's testing me. He's guiding me. He's strengthening me. And I thank Him every single day. And we don't really do that enough as Christians. We don't really thank the Lord each day. You see, in as much as the Christian religion is a religion in which entails going to a church, it doesn't always necessitate that you need to be in a church to be Christian, nor does it necessitate that, one needs to, of course, one's own relationship with Christ is going to be purely from a church. And unfortunately, it's just a state of many people, especially unbelievers who do attend churches, as there has been known to be unbelievers who attend churches, that they oftentimes will state that, oh, well, yeah, we don't, our religion, what we believe is just, central to what the church teaches, and that's it. Or, long story short, everything we need is from the church. We don't need to, of course, have a personal relationship. And I say a personal relationship with Christ is important. We can't ignore that. We can't negate the truth of His words either. His word needs to be a staple in our lives. So I've been reading through as you can tell from the title, I've been reading actually through the book of Deuteronomy. I'm actually reading through the entire Old Testament. That's going to be reading through. But primarily, of course, I read through recently the book of Deuteronomy, and I found so much brilliant insights. So when you say what's your denomination, I'm assuming you're referring to which church would I be aligned with theologically? Because I do not argue that there is any such thing as a Christian denomination in the biblical sense. In the biblical sense, there's no such thing as a denomination. There are those who are in Christ, there are those who are not, right? But at the same time, I am not the type of person to then extend a hand to Roman Catholics and Eastern Orthodox as if they're brothers in Christ, simply because they are claiming to believe in what I believe in. So I'm not an ecumenist, my friend, but what I am is I'm a born again Christian. What that entails theologically or doctrinally is that I would more affirm a Baptist / Presbyterian position. But you can just as much find good Anglican scholars who would agree with me, like J.C. Ryle, for example, and others as well. Even people from the Pentecostal persuasion that would agree with me, and of course, I would agree with their leaning. So when you say denomination, it becomes very scanty and very nuanced. I don't think I'm in a denomination. I go to a church that would consider itself a denomination, but primarily I am a part of the body of Jesus Christ, and He redeems His people. And I know your name is Return to Tradition. I mean, that's an interesting name. I would just simply say Return to Christ, because tradition has it that, of course, there is this long line or long standing in apostolic succession. And my greatest defeat of apostolic succession is just what it is intrinsically. And so a lot of the times, unfortunately, due to the fact of uneducation in this area, people seem to think that it's okay to say, well, my church has apostolic succession. I can point to a succession of bishops that would, of course, lead back to the time of the apostles. That was the argument that, of course, the enemies of Athanasius and by extension Alexandrius of Alexander or Alexander of Alexandria, that is going to be the extension of the arguments that they would make. The problem with this argument, though, is it doesn't entail whether sound doctrine is going to be the premise of what is to be considered a true church, and that was Athanasius' argument. It was like, look, you can call yourselves the first church and even the early churches, but there are churches being built up in this day that are more holy and of course more apostolic, simply because they hold to the apostolic faith. And he even says in his letter to the Catholics, not the apostolic places, but the apostolic faith. Sure, you can have a succession of bishops that maybe even date to the time of Jesus Christ, but that doesn't mean anything. What's Paul's warning in the book of Acts, chapter 20, verses 30? What is that warning? It's the warning that there'll be wolves in sheep's clothing who will come amongst the flock and mislead the people. And he doesn't say just amongst the flock, he says even amongst you elders. Paul did not have in his mind there was going to be this infallible, consistent witness after him that would be grounded in the magisterium of Saint Peter and the Petrine authority. That's not there. It's missing completely. And even when you get into later church fathers, like of course Ignatius, like of course Polycarp, like of course Irenaeus, you don't see that Petrine primacy at all. You see remnants of what is Rome considered to be the capital of the empire, and thus, of course, where Peter and Paul died, and thus having some authority, or at least some sort of fame. But you don't really see the idea of Petrine supremacy, papal infallibility, or anything akin to what is found in the Council of Nicaea. Sorry, not the Council of Nicaea, Vatican I and Vatican II. No, Salafi is not a Christian thing. Salafi is a false it's a false attribution when it comes to Christianity, because it is related to an Islamic system of thought. I would argue it's a straw man to say, well, just because Muslims say the same thing, that they mean the same thing. We mean two different things. And I also say that I don't reject that there are distinctions. If you're arguing, of course, do you believe in a distinction between the Roman Catholic system and the Christian system? Of course I do. But if you're arguing that there must be denominations, that's not biblical. We are not divided. We are the body of Christ. If you trust in Christ alone for your salvation. And what that means, of course, is not believing in the Council of Nicaea II. Sorry, the Council of Nicaea II, well, obviously. But even Vatican II, its decrees, Vatican I, anybody who holds to these kind of doctrines, like Vatican II says in 2068, that, of course, salvation is by faith, baptism, and the keeping of the Ten Commandments. That is a Judaizing gospel. That's what Paul strongly and ardently went against. And it's not just my opinion either. A lot of people say, well, you're just reading the Bible in and of yourself. Well, why don't you just read St. John Chrysostom's homilies on this? What you'll find is he's actually stating the same sort of things. He's stating that, yes, like they were adding to the gospel, they were adding to the finished work of Christ. And so Paul chided them. I've got that all, of course, written down and copied. I'm just saying that underlying ideas seem to be pervasive across all religions. I am a Muslim, by the way. Well, I mean, sure. I mean, you can find, for example, the idea of monotheism to be pervasive across all religions. There's going to be a sort of mix between the categories, but it'll be a category error to state that it's exactly the same. It's obviously not exactly the same. And obviously a Salafi, I mean, I'll even argue, of course, because Salafi at least, of course, holds to some form of tradition. There are, of course, Christians who don't hold to any form of tradition whatsoever, who you could be classing as Quran only, who would just be Bible only. I'm not too far away from that. Doesn't matter, man. You're in my live, I'm talking. You know what I mean? There's plenty of Speaker's Corner chuds out there, my friend. I don't go Speaker's Corner, so I wouldn't know about the chuds, but there's plenty of them, of course. And I don't think there's any argument. I think it's plainly clear that and obvious that Salafism and Christianity is two different things. Insofar as their content. But yeah, I mean, let's go back to Bob now. I wanted to speak about what Bob had done. So recently I'd come across, and I don't really follow Bob's stuff. I don't really care what he does. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I know we've had conversations about this individual before, and it's only because he seems to have some prominence in this online sphere, and I utilize him sometimes as an example of what is known as ecumenism, or the understanding of Christian ecumenism, which basically dictates that anybody who believes in the Nicene Trinitarian definition and also believes in by proxy the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, they are to be known as Christian. Now, obviously, I reject this because I think there's more to Christianity than just a mere affirmation of the Trinity and the affirmation of one being, of course, or Christ being dead, buried, and resurrected. I believe the Bible represents that claim as well, as you'll find in the book of Galatians. But I wanted to go and actually view this because I wanted to highlight some points, basically, that I think a lot of people don't understand in the background, just how much a vociferous, sorry, my mouth's gone, bro, Lord, lose some more time, a vociferous bully that this individual is. And when I say a bully, I mean a bully. And it's not me saying, oh, big meanie, woo woo. I mean, he obviously couldn't bully me. He couldn't bully a wet paper bag. But when it comes to those who are a bit more timid, a bit more, of course, let's say meek, especially like, of course, the brother David Makareth, completely disgusting behavior. And it doesn't surprise me at all, by the way, that he's been filmed still by a JC, because JC doesn't have any morals. JC does not have any morals. I don't know why I've got pads up. I don't know what this is, but So-called studio. Anyway, JC, of course, who's the cameraman for So-called Films, who's a notorious drunkard, he has a backup channel known as, of course, So-called Studio, where he thinks he can get away with the most abominable crimes and murder known to man. Or where he just puts videos that he thinks are just body arbitrary or something like that. So I just want to show you this. Then you can have a go at, of course, seeing just the type of scumbag Bob is. And yeah, he's a scumbag, man. He's a scumbag straight. But let's go. Okay.
This is my team, and we get everything done with Monday.com. Sarah is a senior project manager, and she has.
Do you think you're false gospel, Bob? I'm not interested in debating you on that topic, but if you want to debate, like Christian nationalism, I'll debate.
Now, of course, what needs to be understood is that the reason why Bob does not want to debate the very topic of the gospel is because, one, he knows he'll be schooled by anybody with an inch of intellect on it. Secondly, he only really cares about promulgating his theology, his ideas. Doesn't care about the truth of the Bible. He really rarely, if ever, speaks to anybody about the gospel. And when he does so, he does it to people who don't inherently have the true gospel. Because evidently, it would thwart his own plans to, of course, show that there is an evident distinction between him and the born-again believer. Like, make no mistake, Bob is not a Christian. If we're classically defining Christianity within, of course, the scope of what is considered orthodoxy, irregardless of what position you hold to, by the way, you don't have to hold to the denomination that I hold to. If you want to call it denomination, I call it Bible-believing born-again Christianity, and that's just how it's been for 2,000 years. But even if you're a Catholic and Eastern Orthodox, you still have to hold that this man is a heretic. For starters, the Catholic and Eastern Orthodox Church hold to dogmas that this man would simply plainly disagree with. According to a 1982 council within the Eastern Orthodox Church, I think this is the Council of Jerusalem, a 1982 one, a conglomerate of what is known as patriarchs and bishops got together and basically stated that ecumenism, or Christian ecumenism as known, is a sin. It's a sin, and anybody engaging in this stuff is engaging in the sinful act. Now within the life of the Eastern Orthodox Church, and this is something which every born-again believer needs to know, they are conciliar church. This is according to one Callistus Ware, who writes his book, right? Callistus Ware, or Timothy Ware. He writes a book called The Orthodox Church, which is from the perspective of an Anglican that became, of course, Eastern Orthodox. And he makes it clear himself, by the way. I think it's around chapter 12 or chapter 11. The Eastern Orthodox Church is a conciliar church. It's a council church, which means that, for the most part, although they would affirm scripture, and they would affirm it, of course, as having infallibility, it really should be read in light, of course, of the consistent witness of what is the church fathers for them. They will just make that up. And of course, the councils that relate to their church primarily. Now, he admits in a discussion, which I played on this channel before, he admits himself that in reference to the councils, it's not always going to be the case that just because a council has, of course, supreme authority from the Eastern Orthodox side, or because it has, of course, a lack of authority, that's a true council. And he actually, in fact, argues at the end of it that what makes a council valid is what the Eastern Orthodox Church deems to be valid. So ultimately, it's entirely circular, the system there, entirely. And they also will consider the Seventh Ecumenical Council, Nicaea II, simply because of this. It's not about whether, of course, there are many more bishops or there's a lack of bishops. He goes through basically saying that's going to be the case for heretical councils, like the Synod of Tyre, for example, versus, of course, the Council of Nicaea I, which comes prior to it. So, bearing that in mind, to be an Eastern Orthodox is to accept the conciliar declarations of the Eastern Orthodox Church. Now, one could be an Eastern Orthodox and reject these things, but they wouldn't be able to receive communion. They would be denying the dogmatic definitions. And now dogma used in these senses is going to be a reference to, of course, that which must be believed by all the faithful. Like, for example, the Trinity. If you go into the churches I've been into, or majority of them, in fact, I don't think I've been to a Unitarian church, but in of course, all of the churches I've been to, if you go in there and you're denying the Trinity, sure, you can sit there, you can have a good old laugh, maybe get some tea afterwards, but you would not be defined as a Christian according to the people there, because you'll be denying the dogmatic definitions of what that church teaches, which is going to be the Trinity. So it's going to be the same thing for the Eastern Orthodox Church, right? And the Eastern Orthodox Church is very clear on its doctrinal stances. If I was a Catholic, I can't, of course, go in and have communion, which is basically, eating the bread and drinking the wine, of course, to remember Christ. Now, for them, it's something different, but something more than that. But you know what I mean. You can't do that. You can't partake of it because you would not be classed as a Christian, not in the colloquial sense, but in the sense, of course, of what they are defining Christian in their canons. You wouldn't be considered that. You would be outside of the faith. So it doesn't make sense, therefore, for somebody to advocate for Bob's position whose own church is in entire disagreement with it. Not only that, this church being a conciliar church also affirms the idea that there is, right, for example, there are 7 ecumenical councils. We've spoken about them before. One of these councils, Nicaea II, states, of course, anathemas. Anathemas, if you don't really know your Greek language or whatever, an anathema is an accursement. It's a damning to hell. Richard Price, the scholar, notes, speaking of one of the early councils, that an anathema means a damning to hell. The Council of Yassi, which is also affirmed by the Eastern Orthodox Church, states that this is a damning to hell, speaking of the anathema. So, for one, in order to be an Eastern Orthodox Christian, and to be considered a Christian in any sort of sense, in the dogmatic and doctrinal sense of the Eastern Orthodox Church, one has to, of course, accept the dogmas of the Eastern Orthodox Church, be baptized in the Eastern Orthodox Church, and of course, that would involve, of course, a process of catechesis. Now, I challenge an Eastern Orthodox quote Christian to tell me I'm wrong on this, because that's what your doctrinal definitions lead you to. I know this stuff. I've read it. I didn't come to conclusions based upon, no evidence and, of course, just my own postulations about what Christianity is. Nor did I simply ignore the fact that these churches are called self-old. What tends to happen in these conversations, from what I've noted, is that plenty of times when we're speaking about the Eastern Orthodox or Catholic Church, and showing that they, in fact, should themselves be at variance with Bob's teaching, they oftentimes will go into defense mode and then start defending their own traditions. That's not the argument I'm making here. As long as you agree there is dogmatic definitions that your church holds to, and also agree that your church holds the position that ecumenism is wrong, then there is no, you can't fight this. This is just a standard. You can't agree with Bob. You can't. So, I mean, so within this system then is the understanding that, of course, Mary is Theotokos. That can't be denied. Now, that wouldn't go with Bob's definition, of course, because in no way is there any stipulation, by the way, in Bob's definition of what is Christian, that one has to believe in any councils, other than, of course, the Council of Nicaea 1. Yeah. They don't have to believe in the Council of Nicaea, 2. They don't have to believe in the council that, of course, anathematized Nestorius. What does that matter? Remember the definition. Those who claim to be Trinitarian and affirm the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ are Christians. That's not my opinion, that's Bob's opinion. Now, this isn't just secondary to them. This is primary. So in order to be a consistent Eastern Orthodox, you have to deny that Protestants and Roman Catholics are Christians. It's as simple as that. So even if I don't hold to the position I hold to, it's only consistent within the majority of denominations out there that, of course, have some sort of historical brevity, that Bob's definition of Christianity is wrong. And it needs to be, of course, challenged. It's going to be the same thing for the Roman Catholic Church. Now, the Roman Catholic Church is kind of different insofar as, its modern decrees are different from its earlier decrees. So Vatican I is completely different from Vatican II. Vatican I, according to, of course, that, the milieu of that time, and the authors of that time, like outside the Catholic Church, there is no salvation. Extra clenium nulla salis. That's just clear. Lord, loosen my tongue. The other definitions are, ultimately unum sanctum, which is a papal bull by, I think it's Pope Boniface the 13th, off the top of my head, where he says, outside of the Roman Catholic pontiff, there is no salvation. So one must be submitted to the Roman Catholic pontiff to be saved. Now, obviously, an Eastern Orthodox wouldn't believe in that. So they can't consider themselves to be Christian if they're going to be consistent about what definitions they are claiming Christian to be. Now, for Bob, those things don't matter. So he is at variance not with just those who are born again Protestants, as we'll call it. We just use that term loosely, even though I don't agree with the term. I don't care about it. We'll use that term loosely. He doesn't care about that. It doesn't bother him. All he wants to do is peddle his definition for the purposes of promulgating ethno-nationalism and Christian nationalism. That's his agenda. And, bear in mind, he does have an agenda. That's an agenda, man. So I just want to let people know there's a reason why Dr. David Makareth is approaching Bob about this, because people who are Christian and, of course, Bible believing, especially, are concerned that the gospel has been misrepresented by somebody who's claimed to be a Christian. And there's nothing wrong with that. Of course, in hindsight, given the fact that I've gone after Bob twice, that would be 3 times now, of course. But the third time was when Crazy James went after him. But I mean, that's neither here nor there. You know what I mean? Lord, loosen my tongue. Considering that I went after him multiple times, he ran for me both of those times. I feel like this guy's just a coward. He's trying to promulgate his own ideology. That's it. He's not there to defend Christianity. Sure, he will defend it in a colloquial sense. Maybe he'll say, "Oh, the Bible is true." Blah blah. Maybe he'll say that, and maybe here we'll give definitions of admitting things that may be biblical, but he doesn't affirm them to their fullest conclusion doctrinally. We're going to show that. But anyway, I'm going to play the rest of this video now. There we go.
You on that because I think you you spoke against Christian nationalism.
I didn't actually. Where'd you get that from?
Well, maybe I misunderstood you then. I watched the video in which I thought you were speaking
Christian nationalism that you represent.
Right, would you like to debate that then?
Yeah, no, we've got to start asking.
No, I'm not interested in that debate.
Let me finish my
No,
sentence.
I'm not interested in that debate.
Let me finish my sentence.
I'm not interested in that debate.
You don't know what you're not interested in because you don't
I'm not interested in your debate about the gospel or anything like that. You tried to dox my family. You tried to endanger my. You tried to.
So what actually happened is, Dr. David Makareth asked Bob for his name. That was it. Now, Bob is accusing Dr. David Makareth of trying to dox his family. That would have happened anyway, Bob. But I mean, how is that doxing? Do you even know the definition of doxing? He doesn't have that much personal information to go by other than a name. But who are you to be offended if somebody asks him, well, what's your real name? You can just say politely, oh, well, I don't really give out my name. As you've done before, as I've seen you do before, Bob. I don't really give out my personal name. And you're talking about him threatening women and children. What, have you got a harem somewhere in your flat or something? What's going on? I mean, it's just basic news from the, live streams that you were doing, that you lived in a bedsit. You shared, of course, a property with somebody else. People know that. That's common knowledge. And I don't even need to know your full name to know that. Also, right, what about the people who actually see you go home? What about those? I mean, he can't really do much with your name. No offense, he can't do anything with your name. But this is a bit of a misguided response to somebody asking, well, what's your name? You're trying to dox my family. It's a bit extreme. That's like, honestly, that's like saying, oh, there was I got a threat to my letter. I got a threatening letter in my letterbox. This guy is trying to blow up the world. Like, what? It's a bit extreme. There's a mountain. There's a molehill. You have made a mountain out of a molehill, Bob, as he usually does, to try and run. That's what he's doing. And trust me, you're going to see him run, bro. You're seeing him run.
That's not nice. I tried to endanger my family, and you put women.
Yeah, by the way, the notorious drunk JC, again coming with his tomfoolery, saying, oh, he tried to dox him. Bro, why don't you be quiet and film? I mean, this is one thing I've not liked about JC, is he doesn't know when to shut up and film, bro. Just be quiet and film. Don't have an opinion. You fail every debate you go down there with. You are not a debater. You are there just to film. You want money. That's what you're getting. Don't interact, bro. No offense, bro.
Women and children. You wanted to put women and children in danger because of your own ego.
Nobody got put in danger, though. So you're a hypocrite. Who got put in danger? By answering your name, nobody was put in danger. And you have the right to give that aforesaid name. And even if somebody did give that to him, what was he going to do with it? And how would you be in danger? Oh, the Mohammedan would say it. They may even know where you live. How do you know that Muslims don't know where you live? Do you think you can James Bond it out here? If a Muslim wanted to follow you home, Bob, they could. Like, what is this? I'm sorry, this is just pathetic. It's a rescue device because Bob is insecure to get away from the argument. That's what's going on. Well, I'm glad, the one thing I like about Makareth, he's not like me, of course, because like with Bob, Bob can, run from me because, I'm very outspoken. With Makareth, he's calm, he's consistent, so he isn't playing up to all this stuff. And I think that's why, in a lot of ways, this is what Makareth's, of course, skill is that he just goes in there, all calm, collected, asks basic questions, man. None of that, of course, getting into beef, because obviously it can get into beef, especially with Bob, man. I mean, don't you remember last time, the first thing he did, like literally, one of the first things he actually went to was, oh, your wife is this, you're this. We've heard this rumor from a brother, so we're going to tell you this. Scream it in the park because of the fear of debating somebody of more intellect than him.
Yeah, he is a Christian, but he's a sectarian.
This man does not believe the Bible.
Can you prove?
Of course, brilliant. But sectarian, that's a term I keep hearing. It's a term that they fabricate, of course, because sectarian, of course, doesn't mean anything. In hindsight, what do you mean by sectarian? Because sectarian has a meaning, right? So what are you meaning when you are, of course, expunging this nonsense out of your mouth? Are you meaning, of course, sectarian in terms of a political stance? What are you meaning when you say sectarian? I mean, it's kind of funny because Young Bob has said himself, I am a sectarian. But they will still use sectarian as a problematic word. That is not problematic. It's fine to be a sectarian, but it depends how you're using it. But for Bob, he is assuming his own authority, by the way, so he's a pope of his own religion. And by the way, he's a pope of his own religion. He's just basically a pope of his own religion. He's a standing authority, not the Bible, not the witness of the church fathers, just him. That's it. And so he gets the right to determine that a sect is being made out of a group from his church. No, Bob, your church doesn't exist. If anything, I can reverse it when you say you're the sectarian, because true Christians do not believe the crap and lie of the evolutionary theory. We don't believe in the lies that you are promulgating about Christianity, nor do we believe that Catholics and Eastern Orthodox Christians. All bogus.
Prove that statement.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, prove it.
The Bible says the just shall live by faith.
Yeah.
That means we say by faith alone.
Can you prove where I denied that? Can you show where I deny that?
And you call me a pompous ass, so I presume
that is a denial. But no, that's your assertion.
Okay, so why did you call me a pompous
That's it,
ass?
because you are a pompous ass, and you
Thank you very
behave
much,
like a
Bob.
pompous ass.
Yeah, so this is just ad hominem insults, which is kind of hilarious that Bob uses that type of, foolishness when it comes to Muslims doing it to him. He doesn't like it. I mean, wasn't it you, Bob, who yelled out, "That's an ad hominem" during a debate with, like Adnan Rashid a few years ago? But you're going to do it with somebody else. Like, even if he's a pompous ass, as you want to say, is absolutely false. Dr. Makarev, of course, has struggled with the gospel, and I've got, I'm not even trying to, glaze my man. I'm obviously, he's a different you. I'm not, I'm not here to glaze anybody. It's all about Jesus Christ. But I've got to be honest here, yeah. When a brother is actually suffering for the gospel, not just standing in Hyde Park yelling at the top of his lungs to some dumb low IQ Muslims, but actually struggling for the gospel, I've got to give props where props is true, bro. Like, for example, Makarev lost his job because he stood on business and said, there is only man and female. And he refused to use gender pronouns. But so because of that, because of his faith, of course, because he refused to use these gender pronouns, he lost his job. And according to what I've watched on his, and he can maybe correct me, but according to what I watched on his channel, he actually ended up losing his house. He had to go live with somebody else. I don't know whether he's actually living in a property of his own now. I don't know what's going on there. But he struggled. He lost his own property, lost his job, lost his property, all because of this. You're the coward who can't even say your first name. So calling anybody a pompous ass while you're doing that is laughable. You're the pompous ass, man. You're the bigger ass, in fact, because you're embarrassing yourself in front of a guy who's probably like 20 years your senior, who looks, more calm and collected than you are. In as much as people want to say, oh yeah, big up Bob this, Bob that. Most of you guys that are bigging this man up, I'm sorry, you're either baby Christians or completely low IQ. There's no middle line, right? You know what I mean? Because I don't know how you can be applauding this guy. This guy is lost.
Like you're behaving right now. You have made the accusation. You have made the accusation that I don't believe the Bible.
1 minute before I get into that. Ruste says, glad I caught you on here live. I saw that you liked that Honorato Diamante post the other day. What did you think about it? Let me go and look it up. I might have put it in my post, actually. I know what you're talking about. I like Honorato Diamante, by the way. I think he explains the gospel clearly and effectively, showing that the consistent view of salvation is that it's by faith alone. And if that's the consistent view of salvation, then the final conclusion is you can't lose your salvation. Otherwise, it cannot be a free gift. But yeah, I mean, here's another one. He says, these guys online seem to live. Obviously, this is Sam Shamoon. Let me just blow this up. Rusty, let me blow this up. So yeah, it's Sam Shamoon who's put on a bit of weight. I mean, it's fine. I mean, we all do that. But I mean, it's Sam Shamoon with a guy named Bryce Crawford, from what I understand his name is. Interesting name. These guys online truly seem to live in an alternate universe. I keep hearing Sam refer to Ryan as a need a facelift. Can someone donate a mirror to Sam? Well, yeah, he's saying need a facelift to Ryan, but honestly, you look like a cat's bottom compared to Ryan, mate. I mean, if I'm going to be honest, as if I really care about what men's appearance look like. I'm a man. I like women. I don't like men. But I mean, it's kind of funny, like, what I mean? That's what's cussing you out. At a certain point, you just got to look in the mirror and say, you know what? I'm going to stop with the insults about what people look. But I mean, it's. I've actually followed this. Not followed it, but I've actually seen on TikTok a few stuff about Bryce Crawford. Rather, he's of course now, according to some people, explode this idea of going to different authorities within churches and speaking to them. I did that 2 years ago. It really goes to show the difference, right? We did that 2 years ago. And of course, there are, other channels and people who I'm not going to mention because I don't want to give them clout, who've done it before us. And I'm saying I'm not going to give them clout because, not because I hate them. It's just one of them shouldn't really be in ministry. You know what I mean? And I've told her this before, and she refuses to contact us. But, but I mean, there's been ministries that have done this before us, and we did it before Bryce Crawford. But it really just goes to show that, people really on the internet, they have a 1 year lifespan, maybe even a few weeks lifespan, depending upon the meme. and they of course lose their minds after that and forget what's happened in history. But yeah, I mean, there appears to have been discussion between him and Sam. I don't know what to make of. I honestly like not to make of Sam. Obviously, I've criticized Sam before. Sam should be, for me, he's just a Catholic. He's a Catholic, all right. And there was this whole video of him saying he wished that salvation was by faith alone, and that he could live how he wanted to. And that's a straw man, because that's not what salvation by faith alone even entails. He just assumes that's the case, But yeah, he doesn't understand. Not understand. He denies the gospel. He wants to posture his own works. Unfortunately, he can't do that. He can't do that. But we have to pray for him. That's all we can do. But as for Honorato Diamante, yeah, I enjoy what he does. I think he's good at it. Yeah. Not much to say there, bro. God bless you, Roste. Let me blow this back up. There we go.
Says that the justified shall live by faith. Where is your evidence to that claim, please?
Well, let's answer the question.
No, I'm not doing interrogations.
No.
You've made an accusation. No, we're not. I'm not answering.
So what Bobby's doing here is he's basically nitpicking, because he's insecure of the type of discussion that is going to happen where he gets whooped on the gospel. He is essentially saying, well, that statement you've just made, I'm not going to elucidate it properly and still, man, what you're actually trying to say. I'm rather, of course, going to nitpick over the fact that you've said, show me where I deny the claim of that one Bible verse. But that's not what he's saying. He's not saying that you're denying the claim of that one Bible verse. What he's saying is that the conclusion of believing that the just shall live by faith is that it's not by works, which you deny, Bob. You do not believe that justification is by faith alone. You've stated it yourself. So then you'd have to deny, of course, the book of Romans in that regard. But then you have to deny the entire premise of the gospel, which you do anyway. So you don't want to be exposed to that. So now you're coming up with this stupid, insecure argument. Show me where I said I denied those exact words. Even if you accept those exact words, do you accept the final conclusion of those words, which is that salvation is by faith alone? And if you do not, then we can get into a further discussion about what the Bible teaches about faith versus your personal retarded opinions.
Any questions? I'm not answering any question. No, I'm not answering any question.
Because you're scared, bro. Like, that's like,
he has made an accusation.
It's just scared. It's fear, bro. Come on. Anybody ain't seeing fear, you must be stupid.
If I make an accusation, do I have to provide evidence? Yes. When I debate the Muslims and I say Muhammad's a paedophile, do I bring out evidence?
You do.
Right. If he
you do
says that I don't believe in the Bible, is it incumbent upon him to bring out the evidence?
So yeah, if you're willing to nitpick over those very things, then I mean the correct response would be, by virtue of the fact that you are not accepting everything in the Bible as it stands, theologically speaking, yes, you are denying the premise, the tenets of the Bible. But I mean, obviously, if you want to nitpick and say, well, he said you deny the Bible, well, show me where I deny the Bible. Sure, you can accept the Bible. It doesn't change the fact that you have a horrible idea of the gospel and that you are not savable. I don't know what kind of, it's just stupid. He's far-tossing about. He's realized he doesn't have an argument. This is why he ran from me like a little girl, man. Like, honestly, this is why he ran from me, bro. And, I mean, don't get me wrong, over the last few years, because we actually confronted him last 2 years ago. Since then, I've not bothered to talk to him. In fact, we warned him about James privately, for his own protection, because James threatened to, pew him. So we warned him of that. And he was responding with, I don't get with bolded, I'm just going, blah, blah, blah. Because he's an ethno-nationalist trying to promulgate Christian nationalism and ethno-nationalism by proxy. Even though he make videos and say, oh, no, I'm not an ethno-nationalist. You are, Bob. But yeah, I mean, it's even when we've confronted him, running. He wants to run his little cowardice mouth because he can't engage in the gospel. Much like the devil does. The devil flees when no man pursues, bro.
Right, so bring out your evidence. You've made the accusation, bring out the evidence. You can speak, but I'm not interested in answering any questions. I want to see the evidence. Go on. How are you doing? You all right?
Iran's going to be free.
Yeah, Iran is going to be free. Thanks be to God. We're not doing questions. We're not doing questions. Where is your evidence to your accusation?
He's clearly asking, do you believe in justification by faith alone? And you're now on some spew about him saying some stuff about the Bible. You know, even if he were to grant that, obviously he's not doing it, but even if he were to grant it, so doesn't mean you believe in justification by faith alone. You're avoiding me.
Where is your evidence to the accusation? Which video, which article, which tweet? I said to you, I'm not doing any questions with you. None, zero, nada, nothing, you pompous ass.
He's so scared, bro. You know, do you not understand that this is type of crybaby insecurity that you would see? He's insecure. And so, like, he's shouting, he's waving his hands about, he's sweating, you know, he's crying to mummy because he's realized there's no argument here. All he's doing is embarrassing himself in front of an older gentleman. It's you know, I mean, if this video was aptly titled, you know, random white man shouts at OAP in the middle of the park, everybody would laugh. I don't know why this isn't. I mean, the way it's being framed as if like Bob is the hero here. What hero of what? Shouting at OAPs? Who's old? I mean, I'm not even trying to be disrespectful to Makarev, but I mean, obviously this guy's old as well. But I mean, like, come on, bro. Like, all you're doing is yelling. Old man yells at cloud. That's what's going on.
Made the accusation, you clown. Now provide the evidence.
You just called him a clown. I mean, I actually, by the way, on the video of this, E99, he's been poo-pooing on Grace for a long time now. Yeah, he doesn't understand. I mean, I'm not even going to say he doesn't understand. He does understand grace. He's denying grace because he's a heathen. You know, he wants to rely upon his own works for salvation, much like the Judaizers did. And he believes he's justified by his works-based salvation. Because that's the final conclusion of ecumenism, is that ultimately it has to suck up each and every doctrine that's false and fallacious. But E99, so basically what's occurring is that this individual here, which I'm going to show you on screen, right, is David Makarev. And if you want to, you can go back and, of course, watch the video from the start. I'm talking about the live stream. Sorry, what's going on? Hopefully it's still showing. I've duplicated somehow the screen. But yeah, basically, this individual, Dr. David Makarev, is confronting Bob on his understanding of the gospel. Bob is crying for his mummy. That's what's going on. If you want to know the short and simple.
You pompous ass.
Okay.
So Bob, wait. Come on. Calling a older gentleman a pompous ass does not make you look any better in this situation. It looks like you're a teenager having a good old rag on his dad because his dad's asked him to do something. That's what it looks like. You look like an idiot, bro. You look like an idiot, fam. Just like the times I made you look like an idiot. I mean, I remember, like you guys don't understand. I remember when this guy, listen, 2 years ago to Bomba, I remember this guy, I had this guy running 10 toes around the park. My man went after Muslims for no reason. I was just there blank face with a question mark hovering over my head, like, what? You've been avoiding me, but you want to debate Muslims. In fact, one of his reasons for doing so and harassing the Dawa team was because I was going after him. I'm sorry, you don't understand how logic works, Bob. If I'm coming after you and I'm a Christian and you're going after Dawa, what the flip does you interrupting Dawa have to do with me? I'm not going to be incentivized to be like, oh, I better back off from Bob because he's going after the Dawa team. I don't want him to interrupt, the Muslims bringing up a new religion and, bringing out a false gospel and teaching people of hell and such forth. Like, why would it baffles the mind? You guys have got to watch that. I had my man 10 toes and he was going after Hashim, Mansour. He was going after everyone. I was like, what's this going to do? I don't care if you go for these guys. He needed a rescue device like he has here, man. He's just basically lost it.
Okay,
go on.
You're going to publish this as well because you're an abuser as well.
It's
live. I want to ask you one question.
No, we're not doing questions.
I want to ask one question.
What is
That's good.
your evidence
You're asking me a
to
question,
your
Bob.
accusation?
What gives you the
Because
right to ask
you
me a
have
question
made
and
an
me not a
accusation.
right? Okay.
Because you have made an accusation, you idiot. You have said with your own lips.
This just sounds like a woman on a menses. That's what it sounds. It feels like that. It feels like a woman, a black woman on a menses. That's just like he's just all scrunched up inside and hurt because daddy's come to tell him to the good news about the gospel, bro.
That I do not believe in the Bible. Now provide your evidence that I don't believe in the Bible.
I mean, you know what the funniest thing David McAuliffe could have done is just try to hug him. McAuliffe just went over and just said, "It's a good boy. It's fine. It's not going to hurt too much."
Ask any questions. The accusation.
Honestly, Bob, you lost this debate. I don't care what you think. You lost. You failed to keep composure, dude. If you are, like oftentimes, I mean, you just know this from basic discourse. When somebody is sure of what they believe, they are able to maintain discourse. That doesn't always happen, sure, especially for me, bro. You know what I mean? Sometimes I fall out, you get me? Especially more back in the day, you get me? That was the times where, everybody was insecure, man. You had a new brother popping up in the park every 5 minutes. I had to deal with every sort of Mohammedan argument. Obviously I've learned it now, but I mean, back then I was it was a different level of kettle fish. But I mean, generally speaking, especially for somebody who's supposed to be a veteran in this game, you shouldn't be losing composure like that. 10 times out of 10, he's supposed to be better than me, and he's losing his composure to Dr. David McAuliffe. He's losing his composure, bro. Oh, man.
Has been made, the evidence must follow.
Okay, I'm going to ask you one question.
No questions. Where's your evidence?
No. Okay.
We're going to see that he's got no evidence. No evidence.
Okay.
Apparently, you can go from 0 to a complete site in just a single prompt with Wix Harmony. I don't know if this is going to be possible.
By the way, look, he just literally said that there was no evidence without actually hearing the provided evidence. I mean, so again, he sets up the straw man. And thank you for saying this, Michael. He sets up the blood clot straw man, and then basically says, "Oh well, guess what? He's not provided evidence against this straw man that I've just set up in my mind." And I think that's how Bob has hoodwinked many of you guys, not you guys watching this, but many of the people who are watching this, man. That's how they've been hoodwinked. Because they, of course, have a surface level understanding of Christianity. They, of course, take this man to be an authority because he says some stuff that can be quite, interesting. Some people may not know this argument. They've heard it for the first time. They hear Bob saying it with such veracity. They're like, yeah. But then when they get down to it, they realize he's a petulant little child. I mean, hopefully, anyway. Don't be stagnant on Bob, bro. You got to explore your horizons, especially reading. Trying to do better than Bob. That should be your mindset. If you think Bob is in any way good, which he isn't. But I mean, Michael Gavgan says, don't think it's fair to say I'm not doing questions, but continue to ask his own questions. It's like Parliament. Almost show no point. I mean, who made him? I'm sorry. You're going to Speaker's Corner, which is supposedly a home of free speech, where people, of course, gather to give different views. But you're saying, oh, well, guess what? I'm not going to engage with anybody who has a different view than what I want to engage with. I mean, that's fine, but in hindsight, it just looks cowardly. It just looks cowardly. And it really just shows that you're there for an agenda. But I mean, I hope people really do see through this abysmal display here from Bob that really he doesn't really care about the gospel. He's not really caring about defending his views either on ecumenism. He doesn't care. He wants to assume his own religion, promulgate his own religion, like a parasite does, really. Although parasites don't have religions, maybe they do. I don't know. You know what I mean, man. You know what I mean. Anyway, let's continue.
Why did you call me a pompous ass?
Because you behave like a pompous ass.
Why did you call me a clown?
Because you behave like a clown.
Why did you threaten me the other day?
Nobody threatened you.
Oh.
There's no justification for that at all. At all. I mean, for example, I could say you're autistic and you're behaving like a little girl. Sure, both of those would actually be factually correct. But does that help further discourse? Are you trying to shun away this big bad wolf who's now making you feel insecure by insulting him multiple times? And notice, look how he looks, bro. He looks a bit derpy, bro. Looks derpy, anyway,
okay. This man is fine.
Where is your evidence? Where is your?
The thing you got to understand is that Bob has autism. Now, I'm not saying that people with autism are bad people, but there are a few people now that I've seen go at Speaker's Corner that have autism. It's kind of interesting. The one that's called Young Bob has ADHD and autism. He has autism. The last one who was called Little Bob, who most of you guys probably won't even know, 14-year-old kid who went up there who was able to riff stuff and said, autism as well. And with autistic people, they like their set order of things. They like this set. If you take them out of that set, they're like, ugh! You know, they get all up with themselves, man. There's because they're mentally ill. And my man's mentally ill. Like, it just is what it is. Like, I'm not cussing people with autism, but he's mentally ill, bro. So that's how he's reacting. He's reacting through his illness. And people like that because, of course, they see this illness as bravery. I mean, a lot of people, when I analyze people like young Bob, for example, I see him go after this crowd, sitting, you know, outside, you know, going after Muslims in the middle of course, Whitechapel, practically on his own. And people thinking, oh, this guy's brave. No, he's autistic. It's not bravery. It's a mental illness. Bravery is being scared to do something and doing it otherwise. That's true bravery. If you want to know the definition, you know, it's you know, defying all odds, even your own self, and overcoming those odds for the sake of it. That's bravery. That's the bravery at least we should applaud. Young Bob and Bob doing this, it's innate to their character. They lack social skills. They don't understand there's consequences to this behavior. They don't. So I mean, whilst of course he's projecting right now, and I believe maybe he's functioning a bit better than Young Bob is. You know, he's still autistic, and there's elements of his brain which doesn't comprehend the weights of situations. And you know, like this kind of reaction, for example, is a reaction that he would have speaking to somebody who he, of course, cannot physically debate. But when it comes to people who he can, like Muslims, he's able to stand there, look big and pompous, you know, declare this and declare that. He's able to do that. You know, that's what you understand. Like, there is a mental health problem at Speaker's Corner. If you're not understanding that anyway, I'm sorry, I don't know how to help you. But there is. I mean, for example, people like David, probably Machiavellian / narcissistic, especially the way he talks about himself, the way he tries to talk over people. You know, evidently he has some problems with emotions and stuff like that. With me, for example, I have PTSD. You know, I have it due to a culmination of things, but I have PTSD. So there seems to be a culmination of mental illnesses conglomerating together. When you've got that conglomeration, what happens is it's like a boiling point. You know. Now, you know, there may be even psychopaths down there who 1 minute could be talking to you nice, next minute stub you up. We don't know that. We don't know that. I mean, majority of them seem to have, of course, personality disorders of some sorts. We don't know that. But I mean, I'm not here to diagnose. I'm just saying, like, you know, it's common knowledge, at least for what I understand, and the rumors I've heard, because Bob loves rumors, right? From the rumors I've heard that Bob is autistic, and so is young Bob. You know, and I think autistic people can, of course, be functioning in society, but there's elements of their personality, and especially of the way they are mentally understanding things, that, you know, it'll be looked upon as a superhero power. Well, imagine you just never fear any situation, but that's not true bravery. That's really just, I'm not aware enough that this situation is actually bad for me to step away out of it. You know, and you know, in situations where maybe you're in Whitechapel and there's some dumb Mohammedan around you and they're, you know, yelling at you and they're getting out, they're a bit more indoctrinated. But if you're in the middle of the flipping Afghanistan or somewhere and you're yelling out Muhammad was a ped and all sorts of stuff, and you're just doing this continually, no self-awareness, then yeah, that's a life lost, bro. That's a life lost, bro. That's an L.
Evidence. Video evidence. Where's the evidence? I threaten you.
Where on your channel, Bob?
Where? Well, good. Go to which channel is my channel? Which channel? Which channel is my channel? Can you even identify?
Now he's begging it. This is clearly, I mean, I wouldn't say it's fear, but it's insecurity. Obviously, Bob, I don't think Bob has the ability to comprehend it, but he has insecurity in him. So he's like, oh, well, you know, which channel? Like, I'm sorry, that's a straw man. Who cares about your channel? The whole premise of the argument, Bob, is you are denying the doctrine of salvation by faith alone. Oftentimes, people don't understand. With an autistic person, you have to spell out exactly what it is. They will find escape routes. And you have to repeat yourself with them as well. So you have to be like, no, Bob, you believe that salvation is by faith plus works. Christians believe that salvation is by faith alone. Let's speak on this very topic. You know, so with me, for example, he broke down massively especially after the Crazy James debate. He broke down massively. He started insulting me and my wife because that's his get off jail free card. He's like a skunk, really. And then he farted and he went, of course, towards the corner park, and started engaging with other people out of fear because he realized he couldn't handle me. Then he starts screaming out obscenities about me and my wife. Because that's fear. That's insecurity, at least.
Find my channel.
I can find at least 3 channels on YouTube.
Right. Which one's mine? Which one's mine?
Okay, Bob.
Right, so he doesn't know what channel, but he has claimed that it is all on my channel, but he can't identify which channel is mine.
I love David McRae. He's just keeping it chill, bro.
Wise man.
And this idiot screw.
Okay, Bob.
Where is your evidence to any of your accusations? Where have you said? Where is your evidence that I threaten you? Where is the evidence?
Yes. It's all online.
Where?
Okay.
Which video? Pull it up. Come back when you've got your evidence. Come back next week when you've got your evidence.
Bob.
Yeah, and that's Bob's way of saying, please go away. I can't handle this debate. Remember, the premise of the debate is, Bob, do you believe in salvation by faith alone? Sorry, Bob, you're denying salvation by faith alone. That's the premise of the debate. It wasn't anything to do with his channel or whether he'd threaten him or not. He literally is trying to undermine Dr. Makarev's claims here by, basically being insecure, screaming at him, telling him he doesn't know his stupid channel, and of course asking him to leave. This is his way of saying, I feel uncomfortable in this situation, Makarev. I can't answer that because I don't want to, because I won't get donos.
Come back next week when you've got your evidence.
Bob, shut up, will you?
Come back next week when you've got
exactly. That's the best thing said in this debate. So, Bob, shut up, will you? If you actually did that more, he'd properly learn a bit.
Your evidence.
So you just come
back next week
and listen to
when you've
somebody
got
else
your evidence,
and have a proper
come back
conversation.
next week when you've got your evidence.
You're a bad man, you know that.
Come back next week when you've got your evidence. What does the Bible say about? What does the Bible say about bearing false witness?
Okay.
What does the Bible say about salvation by faith alone? What is this going on? That was the whole topic of the debate. You are talking about Bible. Let's go to Bible. Pull out the Bible. Let's go. And listen. The hypocrisy is wild, bro. Let me tell you about the hypocrisy. Let me tell you, Drew, about the hypocrisy, huh? Because this man wants to, in the middle of Hyde Park, scream out that according to some dude, that my wife said this stuff about me and that, and now he wants to talk about bearing false witness. And what the bomber? All of a sudden, him wanting to talk about bearing false witness. You see, the autistic can't control it.
What does the Bible say about bearing false witness? What does the Bible say about bearing false witness? You have lied and you have provided no evidence. You have.
It's simple. User, I think that's your name. A simple user. Any born again believer would want to talk about the gospel. He's not an evangelist. He is basically a poster boy for ethno-nationalism. That's why a bunch of nitties follow him. Because or even young Christians. I ain't going to say nitty. Some of them are just young Christians who are genuinely curious about the faith who've seen him. But he's a nitty though. That much is true. He's a nitty. It's not even about autistic people. It's not just about going about insulting autistic people. Because I've seen autistic people way better behaved than he is, evidently. But his autism is really showing here. That's all I'm saying. That's straight autism right now.
Lied to people, and you have said that I don't believe in the Bible. Provide your evidence. You've said that I'm a thug. Provide your evidence. You've said that I.
Well, you're behaving like one. You called the man a pompous ass. Called him a clown. You've been getting over him the whole time. You've been telling him to leave because you're insecure. You're behaving like a fuck. This is embarrassing for your client.
And you provide your evidence. Okay. I don't need to engage with you.
Okay.
No, you don't want to, Bob. It's not like
you haven't got any evidence. Okay. When you've got the evidence, we can talk.
Nobody was filming, okay?
Oh, convenient. Okay. Convenient. When? Okay. When? Right, I'll let him have his speech. I'll have it in his speech.
Do you believe in justification by faith?
We're not doing an interrogation. I do not answer questions from you.
Ever saying that he believes in justification.
Where is your evidence?
Ask him if he believes in justification.
Evidence.
He said he would just let him speak as well. It's kind of inconsistent, you bloody mug.
To your accusations. Evidence to your accusations, please. Where is your evidence?
Why is he screaming, bro? Why is he screaming? He's screaming, bro. It's like, where's the evidence?
Where is your evidence to your boring accusations? Where is your evidence? Where is your evidence? Where? Which one's my channel?
You tell me.
What's my channel called?
Honestly, like, I think honestly, there's nothing more to play here. But I mean, yeah, because all he's doing is just basically avoiding, and he's avoiding because he's insecure. That's a fact. Make no mistakes. I don't care what he says. He's avoiding because he doesn't want to engage with the evidence, and he doesn't really want to go down and speak about what the Bible has to say about salvation by faith alone. Now, this kid has an article, like literally. I mean, I'm calling him a kid. He's older than me, but I mean, mentally he's not older than me. So I mean, I'll call him a kid just for the sake of it. He has an whole article, and this article is over on his Bob Soko account or Soldier of Christ Online, which is a bit cringe, but it's fine. Over there, he has stipulated that, arguments against justification by faith alone, arguments against the positions of the solas. He did a whole article against the solas. Now, I will be responding to that. I've been busy with other stuff, but I will be responding to that because I think it's farcical. I mean, at one point, during this little tirade he has in this article, Bob basically describes, of course, it's so stupid. Bob basically describes praying to saints, like, of course, talking through the phone while it's hung up. And my first thought was like, Bob, do you speak to the phone while after the person you're talking to is hung up? Oh man, do you speak on the phone? Do you honestly speak, Bob, on the phone while somebody's hung up? Like, that's literally one of the defenses he gives for prayers to saints. It's like basically speaking to what? Right, and this is where this man's thinking ain't even right, bro. Because imagine, like, he's the type of person who be having a conversation with his doctor over the phone. He's saying, "Oh, I haven't had any autistic episodes this month. Everything's been fine." And the doctor will be like, "Okay, then, Mr. Bob. I'll leave you to it. God bless you. Take care." And Bob will still be speaking. Well, hold on a second. What you've got to realize is that he's still speaking on the phone. The doctor's hung up. He's left his shift. The surgery's closed. He's back home with his wife, and Bob's talking on the phone. Oh, honestly, these people are nuts, bro. And this is what I got to say to David McAree. You're dealing with some nutter, bro. Stop trying to entice. He's a nutter, bro. He's off his nut. Like, I'm truly convinced that Bob is off his nut. He's not in any way able to comprehend logic. He's off his nut. Now, he will say to me, "Oh, hey, show me the evidence for that." And I'll be like, "Okay, cool. Calm down. Give us a hug. Let's talk a bit more." He's so out of it, bro. And this is where, like, a lot of people are saying I went under his wing. First of all, I mean, I don't know what planet you think we're on, but, I was never under his wing. This guy is a lunatic. He didn't teach me anything. I'm just being honest. He didn't teach me anything. Like, most of the stuff I've learned has been through, of course, my own private studies, of course, biblical studies, and, of course, education. But, I mean, him coming to me, people coming to me and saying, "Yeah, this dude taught you." He didn't. This random dude. We went to the pub a few times, sure, but most of the time I was just challenging his dumb backside. That was it, right? I don't know. There was this whole pipe dream in people's minds that Bob is this, this grandmaster, and people are learning from him. And I really want them to question whether that's true or not. He is mostly elusive. He doesn't really engage in debates with people who know a bit more than him. Now, I'm not tooting my own horn as if I'm anything special. I'm really not. And, the Lord knows, of course, what I am, of who I am, of course. I'm not better than anybody else, but I will say this, in comparison to me and David McAree, although Dave McAree understands the gospel, I'm glad he's able to defend it, and I'm glad, of course, he knows this stuff. I know a lot more about the church fathers and, of course, more about what Bob actually knows. And so I know that, you know, if you're struggling with Makarov, you're not gonna do this. We're not gonna do this. I mean, you want to attack the Solars, and when you get, you know, G-checked by somebody who actually knows them, knows the history behind them, I don't know. You couldn't even handle Makarov. You're not going to be able to handle people. No offense, you know. And maybe he'll be like, "Oh, well, that's just fine. That doesn't suit my agenda." That's true because you're trying to promote ethno-nationalism because he hates black people. You know. Now he may say he doesn't. That's fine. So what? Who cares what he says? Actions speak louder than words, you fish. And when you're standing right next to KKK members on stage and being, of course, lauded by a racist, you know, Tommy Robinson. And Tommy Robinson isn't a racist, by the way. He's a total racist. There's a, in fact, I could show you guys this. I don't know whether I put it on the post already, but Tommy is a racist. He's aligned with Bob. They've been on stage together. Bob's been promoting him. He's been promoting Bob. I just want to get this. Actually, I sent it to the brother Darren over on WhatsApp. The brother Darren knows of this as well. But I just want to get this. So this is the X post from Tommy Robinson. And in fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get on online as well. I think I've got my Twitter on here. I'm going to show you via Twitter this disgusting claim from one Tommy Robinson. Okay. This is what he thinks. Okay. This is what he thinks. This is not just John's opinion. This is the opinion of somebody who considers himself to be a civic nationalist, who really is just an ethno-nationalist disguised as a civic nationalist. Yeah, basically, let me scroll down a bit so I can show you what. Now, this was the 4th of March, so I'm trying to get, of course, through the wave of BS that he's put here. He also had a discussion, I think, with Russell Brand, for what I understand. Who, again, I don't know. I don't really care about these guys, man. I can't lie. But let me share my screen. Let me show you this. You know, I'm not making this up. This is Tommy's actual account, right? So this was on the 4th of March. And I want you to just look at the language of this individual, how he's saying this. So this is, obviously, he's been posting a ton of crap since the 4th. So I'm going to try and drag it down. He's been posting a ton of crap. Okay, that was 20 hours ago. Today's the 6th, so I'm trying to get back to the 4th. Okay, March the 5th. So this was, of course, March the 5th. We'll go to the 4th in a bit. Just bear with me, because, like, obviously with Twitter, so you have to peel through a bunch of nonsense. Okay. And this is March the 4th, I think. No, it's March the 5th still. Let me just peel down a bit more. Because he loves to upload crap to his nonsense TikTok. I mean, that's all in a day, by the way. Like, I don't even post as much as this clown. Seriously? We're still on March the 5th. Like, seriously. Tommy, get off the TikTok, man. Seriously. Flipping, oh. Flipping. Okay, here's March the 4th. So somewhere in this cavalcade of nonsense, right? So that's March the 4th. I'm trying to see where it ends and where it begins. Okay, March the 4th. Also, he's with Alex Jones there, funny enough. Oh, I didn't know Alex Jones was racist as well, man. They're getting everybody, man. Anyway, March 5th. So, yeah. So somewhere in here, I'm going to just quickly get to it. It's taking its time, obviously, because he keeps posting nonsense every 5 minutes. If I could just show you image, I would, because I actually just sent it to brother Darren, but it's just going to be a thing of, you know, having you guys see it. Okay, so this is still March the 4th, by the way. Obviously, Tommy, it would be easier to expose you as a racist if you'd actually stop retweeting stuff every 5 seconds. There's a grape of bitter. Yeah, not sure. Okay, cool. Where is this? Yeah, what is values? Yeah. And why is he's making a video every 5 seconds? This is just a day, bro. What the hell, man? March the 4th. Wait, come on, bro. This got March the 4th. March the get off of Twitter. Listen, he needs to get off of Twitter, man. He needs to get off of Twitter. Look at this. This is just Tommy. Okay, so I mean that says March the 3rd. So it's more than probable that he's deleted it. So I'm going to basically show you it because it's more than likely he's deleted it. So I have to show you it. Maybe if I can paste the image. Let me remove this. If I can paste the image, I'll be able to show you it because this is just. In fact, you know what I'll just do? I'll just do this. Let me go to my WhatsApp. He's obviously deleted it because he's either deleted it or it's hidden on his side. If he's deleted it, then obviously he's done so because it exposes him. Maybe he was drunk when he posted it. I don't know. Okay, so let me show you lot this actually. Let me then blow it up actually. Let me blow it up so you guys can see it. And then what I'll do is yeah, there we go. Bear with me. I'm trying to get this to go ahead to show you guys. Share screen. Share screen. Window. Okay. Here we have it. So this is the now this is from literally. This is literally from the 4th. It's from the 4th, right? And you can tell it's from the 4th. I think it's right at the bottom here. Yeah, March the 4th at 12:53 a.m. Now, it's not showing up on his side. I don't know why. But March the 4th, 12:53 a.m., he wrote, "You could always fuck off." That's the words. I'm just telling you the words of what it says, okay? You could always fuck off somewhere else. And what's the response to? It says The Voice, which is some black British newspaper. I don't know what it is. Now, this is from October 2022, from what I could see there. So, obviously, it's from like 3 years ago or 2 years ago. It's not a recent newspaper. I don't know who even got this, right? And he's not reposting it. He's got a clip of it. And what he says here is, proud to be black but not British. Just 1 in 10 black Brits proud to be British. Now, I never got the memo on when they were asking black people whether they were proud to be British or not. I never got that memo. Neither did the brother Darren. Neither did the Ends. Neither did anybody in Stockwell. Neither did anybody in Streatham. Neither did most people in Camberwell. Nobody got this at all. I don't know where these statistics come from, but I evidently was included. Maybe I'm too coconut. Maybe they just consider me a white man at this point. I mean, it's obvious, right? I sound like one. So maybe they've just, the black community have just decided that as an honorary white man, I cannot be included in this. And there was just some cabal meeting underneath dungeons where they just got together and said, we are going to agree that 1 out of every 10, 1 out of every 10, by the way, according to these statistics, is proud to be British. So for every 10 black people, there's always this one. And I'm precluded because I'm white, so I don't know who this one is. They've got to be some sort of crossbreed or something. I don't know. And what are they defining as black? I don't know. But, you know, in response, it wasn't, of course, you know, anything to really do with or target what's going on here. It's just you could always F off somewhere else. And the reason why he's saying that, of course, the reason why he wants black women to fuck off somewhere else, because it's really intrinsic to his nature. He wants that to happen. He wants a Britain that is full of people who look like him because he's a low IQ Todd. But no, you know, he's targeting this. This has a whole meaning behind it that people are not really clocking onto. His support of Rupert Lowe, who wants mass deportations of every living person that is coloured. You know, like his support of such persons lets us know already. And this, of course, a quotation, sorry, an image of a newspaper from October 2022. That shows us what we need to know. He didn't need to do this. This wasn't recent news. This was 2 years ago. He's taken a clip and he's put, you can go. That is a message to anybody who looks like, it's not about this. It's not about this. It's not about that. It's not about who else is proud to be black. It's not about this random, you know, Maya Angelou who's there. It's about showing dominance to black people and saying, yeah, you can go as well. It's the way of saying it without actually saying it. And the rescue advice for him would be, well, you know, I was actually addressing the person here who was saying proud to be black, not British. Sure, he may say that, but this is a newspaper from 2 years ago that is not recent. And that wasn't brought up in the conversation, that nobody brought up. Only him one brought up, based upon statistics that we can't verify whatsoever. Because 1 in 10 black Brits is a very arbitrary claim. What does that even mean? How do you know they're black British if they're not even British? Or at least, of course, if they're not proud to be British. When did they come into the equation? Right? Was there a meeting in some random, of course, nightclub, and people were like, oh, if you're black British, attend. But the same people despise being British. Why would they attend a meeting where they're being asked if they're British, that they can attend and give, of course, a statistical account, of course, of their position on not being British? It's a bit confusing. So I mean, I don't buy this. He's saying something behind this. He's saying, I want this not in my country. That's the truth. That's what he said. But I wanted to show you that because that's the mindset of these people. Yeah, they want to get rid of everybody. Everybody doesn't look like them, they want to get rid of. To be fair, bro, it's a historic black newspaper in the UK. Not sure about the title, a bit disappointed. But it has down many great things over the years. I don't know anything about it. Nor was I aware that 1 in 10 black people were not proud to be British and where they got these statistics from and how they were able to elucidate that. Well, that's not a question. At all. All I'm seeing is some random Maya Angelou, of course, back of the bus enjoyer, raising her hands up. I mean, it's like, of course, when people, and this is what we've got to really stop doing, lads, is this stupid flipping, colloquialism, attaching every black person to these people. It's like Black Lives Matter, right? I was asked during their rally in 2020, why wasn't I joining Sasha Johnson and others? And the clear reason is because I know you guys are hypocrites. Like, when it comes to you guys stabbing each other in the middle of the street, you don't have a problem with that, but you want to come out here and say, oh, the white man did something. Like, what? So, because I'm aware of course, I'm aware of the hypocrisy, and I, of course, have a bullshit radar in my head. Lord, loosen my tongue. I'm sorry for swearing. But I mean, because I have that in my mind, I've got this ability to understand that you're lying, bro. You're a hypocrite. You're a hypocrite. So even when that was happening, I was like, no. I remember shouting them, not. I remember shouting them that no lives matter. In hindsight, that's not fair though. But I mean, yeah. And even in Tommy's own camp, there's people who are black who evidently do not agree with that. So I don't know where this 1 out of 10 thing is going on. I don't know. I mean, it could be historically black. That doesn't mean it's true. And what do you mean by historically black? What are we talking about? I mean, it's like when people say the black community, what are you talking about? I've lived in this country for years. I've lived in different areas of this country. There's no unified black community. And if there is, I wasn't a part of it from the day I was born, which was 31 years ago. So for 31 years, I've not been aware of any sort of black gathering or community or whatever. I mean, sure, there's churches that gather, sure. But even then, we're not all just sitting around a table in agreement that the British are evil. Like, what? It's just, it makes you realize that for Tommy and for many of these left nationalists, they don't understand what it means to be British. And yeah, I'm saying their whole life has been basically online. They don't understand what it means to be British. Because that you know, there's sides to this, there's levels to this. We don't just like tar everybody with the same brush, man. What the flip is going on? A reform advert, yeah. Or Restore Britain advert, more like. Oh man. But I mean, you can't stop people from voting for these people, by the way, because people like variety. And when they get a leader, they'll move on to another leader. Or maybe when they're hard done by and the leader says to them, look, I can make things better for you, they'll do it. Even if it's like the expense, of course, of, you know, many people being harmed, many people, of course, going back to war-torn countries where they'd be murdered, even if it's at the expense, of course, of people suffering, people's mothers who have come here, of course, people being separated from their mothers, children being separated. And it's kind of annoying because that's what the country was advocating for in the first place. They were advocating for these people to come here, and now they're just like, oh yeah, get out. No, you did that. You caused the damage. You did that. You supplied a home for them in the first place. The more charitable thing you can do is, you know, make a way for the people that are already here. Well, yeah, they do. They want suffering. They're not trying to promulgate truth, unity. Of course, I'm not talking about, of course, a cultural takeover. Because what they will do, yeah, in their, of course, insecurity, they'll say, well, hold on, look at the Muslim markets in Whitechapel, right? You know, they're trying to take over our land, take over our culture. They even say it's a Muslim area, which I don't agree it's a Muslim area. It's never been a Muslim area. The name Whitechapel has nothing to do with Islam. That's it's just standard. Whitechapel is not White Mosque, it's chapel. And chapel would be, you know, historically a church. Have nothing to do with Islam at all. That whole area is not Islamic. They want to make it an Islamic place, but it's not Islamic. It's nothing to do with Islam. It's about understanding that and, you know, pushing that narrative that it's not within the council and the conciliar definitions and you know, the people there, rather than just being like, okay, well, y'all go home. Like, what? You know, and even when they say that, there's undertones, there's a bitter undertone of, what do you mean by immigrant? My granddad came here during Windrush. My grandma, of course, was a white one. What do you mean by that? So, you know, definitions are important, and they're obviously being obscure for various reasons. I mean, the spokesman, whose name is, from what I understand, his name is Charlie Saint, the spokesman of Restore Britain, has publicly come out. Charlie Downs. Charlie Downs has come out on a GB News interview in a discussion with somebody who's basically pushing out of Africa theory, which I don't believe in it, but I mean, even if you believe in Adam and Eve, like, you've still got to come to the conclusion that the majority of the first people in the world were related by blood and ethnicity. So I mean, doesn't work either. But I mean, yeah, I mean, he was basically saying that the interviewed woman he was speaking to, who's been there for, I think she's been in this country for 2 generations, or at least her family were here for a generation, so she's second generation British, right? That she would not be a British woman. So that's the people he really wants gone. And she sounds like a British woman. She is culturally British. She's not wearing a hijab. She's not speaking another language. She's integrated. And yet, you know, he said of her, yeah, you're not British. And also said of a Jewish man who really isn't Jewish. I mean, he's like, what, quarter Jewish? Like, I'm quarter bloody Irish, for example. You know, come on. Restore is basically reform on crack. But reform is basically shadow restore. I mean, have you seen that they are now copying Restore's positions? So when it comes to, of course, the everyone must go clause, I mean, first we've got to really think about what that means, right? When you say everybody must go, right, what do you mean by that? You know, and secondly, how much damage would that do to people and the economy and, of course, society as a whole? Do we really think it's just going to be the case that the minute they start banning halal food, which is what they want to do, they want to ban, of course, hijabs, they want to ban halal food, and they want to ban basically anything Islamic. Well, I mean, obviously not, but I mean, do you really think that's going to go well? I don't know. I don't know. We're looking at a riot, mate. I don't know how far that would go. That would be a terrible place to live in. It won't happen. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we'd have to see where the election goes. The election's for 3 years, right? And Restore have already gained, what are they at now? 100,000 or 10,000? What was it? They're at 100,000. So I think they're at 100,000. So they've gained more than Reform did in its first few months within the space of a few weeks. Like that's abnormal. That means that there's a majority in this country, or at least there's a high number of people in this country that generally do think that what Rupert Lowe is saying is apt, mate. Like what is that? I didn't realize racism has taken a rise again. I thought we buried that in the 1940s. It turns out we haven't. We are going back to racism. No, I'm not political head. I don't really, this country's doomed, and so is this planet without Jesus. So, but in hindsight, you can't help but think, the history's repeated itself. And I even said this on the old post, right? The only other time we've seen stuff like this is during the Holocaust. Mass deportations. They wanted to ship the Jews over to Madagascar. That didn't happen. And then, of course, the final solution when they couldn't, of course, get countries to agree to take them. So, which is not good. And what's stopping them from actually doing that, actually? What's stopping them from doing that? All they need, you got to understand, humans work like this. They first will dehumanize their enemy. That first needs to happen. They will dehumanize them. So they need to fabricate that this is not a creature made in the image of God. They need to fabricate an idea about this as it's a parasite that needs to be exterminated. Once you get in the mind of people, then they'll start thinking they're doing the work of the Lord. Also, then they can encourage others, other white Brits, to join, of course, what will be known as the Death Heads, which will basically be part of the extermination group. Now, they won't tell other nations about this. They'll just do it. They'll gather, of course, refugees into camps, say that, of course, they're having great lives in these camps. Even, of course, create swimming pools and, occasionally bring people around to examine swimming pools. But what's really going on is they're gassing them. Gassing, of course, wouldn't happen. It was Psycho B. I don't think they would do that, but I do think they would have something else, probably. I don't know. EW9 says, how can they ban that? Entire areas of Leicester and Birmingham that have been through Osborne, Leicester, in fact, are fully Islamic. Any ban will, that's what I mean. How are they going to implement this ban of hijab and, of course, halal food? They're going to need some reinforcement. And obviously, Rupert Lowe wants more police on the streets. So now you're talking about targeted oppression. So we're now talking about police officers' deaths. Because obviously, with targeted oppression, you're going to get a response. But there's not going to be people who are just going to stand for that. They're going to be like, hold on, you're targeting us. You're not targeting them. They're going to see that as a immediate attack against them. So you put Jerry's on the streets, of course, and death heads. There's going to be oppression. There's going to be, of course, a resistance to that. I don't think it would go the same way as World War II. I'm just thinking out loud here, but I mean, it could. Like, what's stopping that? I'm sure in the back of, if they were really honest with themselves, I'm sure in the back of majority of these voters for Restore Britain, or at least for the heads of this place, they're truly thinking that's a solution they would agree with if there were no other viable options. If no other country could take these people, would that be a viable option? I mean, obviously it's not a good idea. It ends with WW2. I don't know what kind of war that would instill. What would that do? Like, come on. I don't. The implications really in this political landscape, they're beyond me, because I'm thinking that it's just there's something here that's being missed. When the Reform are saying we're gonna deport a ton, I'm like, you're missing something. You're you're not really showing the implications. And in my mind, I'm thinking, why is it that the pros and cons of this situation are not being weighed properly? What are the cons? Have you even thought about that? The cons of doing such a thing, like deporting tons of people. Have you even thought about this? You know what I mean? But that's what they want. So I'm just saying that that's their mindset. Now I understand, of course, being cultural British and being ethnically British. These, of course, can in the context be two different things. I'm not saying, of course, like for example, I would say I'm British, but I could not say that I'm ethnically white English or at least English, even though I was born here. But I don't think that would matter. I think I've ingratiated in the culture so much as to not be somebody who's like not to be considered British there and not to be considered a citizen of this country. But they want to drive some sort of maniacal understanding about ethnicity and say, well, you are not one of us, so therefore you should leave. That for me, of course, screams hypocrisy. It doesn't really understand history well. What about the Picts, the Anglo-Saxons? What about the wars between these people? Do they want to go back to, and I actually put it on my TikTok, do they want to go back to the times where there was attached housing, where it was piss pots everywhere, where there was, of course, cholera on the streets and in the taps, where man was dying of the plague, where, do they want to go, are they fantasizing about some random Jiminy Cricket, of course, Artful Dodger, Oliver Twist, C.S. Lewis stuff? Is that where their mind's going? I'm sorry. Is their mind going back to, of course, diarrhea in the middle of the streets? No fresh drinking water. Is that where they want to go back to? Because one thing the people like Rupert Law and others are forgetting is that especially early 19th century Britain, it wasn't a great place to live in unless you had money. So classism was an evident problem, right? You'd have the lower classes being, of course, treated like crap. What about the chimney sweepers? Chimney sweepers had to. These were white people, by the way, white British. They would have to sweep the chimneys. If they didn't do so, then they would have, of course, food for them and their families. And what about Fagin the Pagans and, of course, child trafficking and molesting Guanin and Jack the Ripper? What? I mean, come on, bro. Is that what you want to go back to? Oh man, honestly, it's just baffling the mind. You want to go back to like Jiminy Cricket and Artful Dodger and them man there. I thought we moved on. Turns out we haven't. I don't. So I mean, just imagine within, of course, 20 years, lads, it will either be Sharia law or we'll be all wearing top hats, and I won't be here because there won't be a weed then, would there? I will be in Africa wearing a loincloth. Basically being amongst my own people who don't speak my language, don't know who I am, don't know how I got there, and want to eat me because I am fat and, of course, full of nutrients. That's what they want to go back to. They want to go back to Jiminy Cricket. They want to go back to top hat wearing, pipe swilling aristocracy. It's just nonsense, bro. They just want to be like, yes, Jeeves. And today I went with the wife to go swimming. And, we had a fantastic time. And guess what? There was no Mohammedan and no blacks either. You should see how, of course, what's his name speaks about us. Bloody hell. We actually put a video of David Starkey on this channel, bro. Starkey lost the plot as well because he calls us blacks. I'll be in Barbados or Dominican Republic. I mean, they can't put me anywhere, so I don't know where they would put me. I mean, I'm 80% West African. I don't know where. I mean, what, they're just going to put me in Africa? So like, yeah, good enough. I'm going to be standing in flipping Lagos or Sierra Leone just staring at people. You know what I mean? I might just, I don't know, I just start my own church. I don't know. I don't know what I would do. Honestly, if they booted man out, I don't know what I would do. You know what I mean? And what about the 0.25%? They're just gonna just forget that. They're like, the quarter Irish you got, you can occasionally visit Ireland, on a day trip maybe, every few weeks, because that's your lineage. It's just so stupid, bro. So stupid. Honestly, these people are laughing. Bear in mind, that's what they think I am. They think I'm some random spear chucking, loincloth wearing, big lip. You know what I mean? That's what they think. They think I am. But all Caribbean have mixed too. So what they're gonna exactly mix people? What? I don't know. I don't know what the rules are. And even white people are mixed. So what? They're just gonna put you guys half in Poland. And they're gonna saw some of you guys in half and put half of you in Poland, and the rest here. I don't know. And what about, of course, you all returning to Germany? Because if you're 100% purebred Anglo-Saxon, and this is why in their minds really they're cartoon characters. They're working from the mindset of Harry Potter and Slytherin, because it's like, if you know the premise of Harry Potter, right? There's this group of people in there who are called Slytherins, right? And they're all about their pure blood. But even then, it didn't work because some of the most powerful witches. I'm not advocating Harry Potter, but I suppose. But some of the most powerful witches in that whole universe were not even pure blood. They were just like mixtures of human beings. So I mean, but what are they going to do? They're going to saw basically like Polish / British people in half and put one bit in here and one bit in the other side. Or they're just going to be like, white's good enough. I mean, I imagine it's going to be that case because haplotypes, like especially when it comes to that stuff, haplotypes are just going to be consistent. You can't deny haplotypes. That's just genetic data. So it seems to me to be a bit childish to want to conserve one's own ethnicity for the purposes of what? You're going to die and become a stinking carcass anyway. What does it matter? I understand preserving the culture, especially, of course, your identity, but, I just don't see how that can really, of course, mean one specific color. And look at all the white liberal British who disagree with you. Like, what are you going to do with those? Or we're just going to forget about the riffraff? No, they're going to be here. You know what I mean? It's just, it's a pipe dream. Rupert Lowe and others have. But even if they did succeed in Parliament, again. Oh, well, Rupert Lowe, yeah, he does. I don't really, I mean, that's the thing. You really can't take them seriously. We used to mock racists in the past, and I think we should just go back to doing it again and not taking them seriously because they're not serious in the sense that they're having these slogans. If you look on their stupid sites, they're all like, we're going to restore Britain, we're going to go back to loincloth wearing, of course, random Ghost of Christmas Past, Scrooge, and all them man there. That's what they want to go back to, but in hindsight, they don't understand the implications of sweeping chimneys. But even here, like that's their whole. They've got slogans now. You've got this white man. He's like, it's all about the indigenous people. And look what he notes as well.
Britain is not just democracy and tolerance. Britain is not just an idea. Britain is not just playing cricket, drinking tea, eating fish and chips, and complaining.
Britain was never that thing before, of course, you guys decided to colonize other people's countries. Because remember, colonization led to you guys getting tea in the first place. So it took you going to India and raping people in order to have tea. So you can't say it's never been about that. If you really want to go back to bare bones British, look, here's the thing: if they really want to go back to bare bones Britishness, if they really want to do that, then they need to go back to when they were digging hay and flour and cornstarch into the mountains and reserving tin to sell it to, of course, foreign countries that had more power than they did. They also need to go back to, because by the way, Christianity is not a religion that's solely them. I've said this before. They need to go back to their pagan Celtic ways, which means sacrificing their own children to other gods. So they're going to be hiding and preserving wheat in the ground, sacrificing to other gods. Crap in the woods, proper like full on crapping in the woods, bro, and pretending to be Robin Hood. That's your history, bro. You really want to go there, Charlie Down syndrome? Okay.
About the weather. Britain is not just democracy and tolerance. Britain is you. Britain is me. It's everyone who's come before us and everyone who will follow. It's these isles and all of their children.
When you say you're talking to me, because if that's the case, then, I mean, what's the point of this campaign?
It's everything this flag represents. The English, Scottish, Welsh, and Irish, all led by the principles of Christianity.
I mean, that's not even Britain, though. And who defines that anyway? Because like, what makes Welsh, comes through oppression? What makes Ireland, in fact, the Irish in this country were, of course, oppressed. There was a time in this country where there were signs on shop corners which said no dogs, no blacks, no Irish. So, you guys can't get your mind up as to what's British. Now all of a sudden they're British. Okay, that's cool.
Because let's not forget where each of those crosses came from. If Britain is to...
Yeah, Christianity is a religion that's promulgated in Asia, specifically in Israel, by a dude who wasn't racist, who was the eternal God, who then sets up a church which is multi-ethnic, promising a kingdom of God which will also be full of multiple ethnicities of people who don't look like you as well. And you just got to be a special kind of retarded, bro, to even, I don't know, don't use Christianity, man. Become Hindu, man. You guys are lost. Enjoy the ride. Sounds like somebody who takes drugs will be saying. Oh, man. Okay, Britain is a people. Our people.
Britain is a people. Our people.
Yeah, and what do you mean by our people? Wow. Look, I'm blackface and stuff. That was great. But you got the same queen who introduced, of course, these sort of policies that led to people coming over in the first place and settling here. I mean...
If that means...
Wait, what? Oh, man. Yeah, hear this.
Millions go, then millions go. Britain is a...
Millions go. Oh, man.
Very close to 110,000 members, which is fantastic. Our war in the air is pretty good.
Yeah, honestly, an idiot. Called Newham. Now, how they conceal this racist nonsense? Yeah, it's selective Britishness. What Britishness do they want? Do they want to go back to chimney sweeping, chim through, artful dodgers stealing from people in the middle of the streets, aristocracy, hating the lower class and consider them to be, riffraff off the streets? Do they want to go back to World War I or World War II? They want to go back to that time? Where single parent mothers, who, by the way, would have existed during that time, were left to rot. I mean, we're going to go back to rationing. What are we going to go back to? We're going to go back to piss pots, throwing piss out the window. It's just gay. It's all of it's gay, bro. All of it's gay. I don't know what to say to you guys. All of it's gay. It's a bunch of gay. It's gay British porn. I said it. It's gay British porn, bro. That's what they're doing. They seriously, honestly think that's what Britain is, because they know nothing about history. Oh man, most of what you guys have got, whether you like it or not, as a British man, most of what you guys got is from other countries which you raped and tortured. You have no claim to most of what you guys got, including your comrade. Oh, yeah. I don't know. We can bring tea back to the Indians then. I don't know. EAA ban, if not fail, if they'll ban Islam and boot the people out of the country. I mean, it's tantalizing to say, oh yeah, cool, Islam gone. But that's not really what they want to do. The final solution for them is a country devoid of anybody who doesn't look like them. That's pretty much it. There's nothing to do with religion. Yeah. So I don't know. You guys can think and ponder on that. And let me know what you think. German royal family have renamed themselves the Windsors. Well, yeah, I mean, look, inherently, if you think about it, if you really actually do the digging on this, the Angles were a Germanic people who came to this country and claimed it as their own. That was it. So they claimed this stupid plot of land for themselves. And if you really go back further than that, these were people who were branched out from the time, of course, of Adam and Eve, branched out from Noah, of course, descendants of Seth, Ham, and Japheth, who were they themselves related to a Canaanite people, Syrophoenician peoples. They're not some separate alien race at all. So all this classification about ethnicity is a bit dumb. It's just stupid. They should really all go back to Germany then, if you're going to really have that kind of mindset. And how far back should we really go? What country are we talking? What, Mesopotamia? Should we all go back to Mesopotamia? In fact, that's what I'm going to call for. We should all go back to Mesopotamia, lads. That's what we should do. Okay? We've outstayed I'm talking about the entire human race. We've outstayed our welcome. Remember where Adam and Eve were? Mesopotamia. We used to go back to, that area of the Chaldees. We used to go back to Abraham, bro. That's where we need to go. Abraham, of the Chaldees, bro. We need to go back. All of us, bro. Every single man on this planet. Right now, bro. We don't own nothing. We're all immigrants, is what I'm trying to say. We're all immigrants. So, we need to get out of this stupid mentality that, immigration bad. You know what I mean? Like, and we need to start, of course, helping others. I mean, I saw this, I don't know if you guys saw it, but there was some injunction for 40,000 a day. Sorry, not 40,000, but 40,000 to be given to immigrants for going home. So they're going to pay people to go home. They could, it's a bit annoying. And let me tell you why it's annoying. Let me show you. This is on the Sun, innit? The Sun. Pay if you go, right? So now they're of course paying them, which seems nice. It's like, you can leave. Let me show you. There we go. So it says pay if you go. Failed asylum seeker families to be paid up to 40k to leave the UK within a week in major migration overhaul. So one way they're trying to, of course, now, low-key move people out is by paying them to leave. Now imagine, right, with every few families, like that's 4 people, of course, who receive 10k, you could also start a universal basic income for each and every person that's still living here and that's lived here for more than a certain amount of years, rather than, of course, giving money to people who have just come here a day ago. You could support families who've been living there all their entire lives, as well as, of course, natives that have been living here and their generations, with a universal basic income. But this woman, what's her name? I can't remember. I don't even know her name. Shabna Mahmood, which is a British name, by the way. Shabna Mahmood basically is giving people money to leave. And it's kind of funny because once you go and tell them to do that, what the hell are they going to do if they want another 40 grand? They're going to get themselves back on a boat and come back here. So they're going to just get on a boat and come back here. So well done, Shabna. You're smart. You know what I mean? The offer will last just 7 days, and families who refuse to deal will not be able to claim the money later. Apparently, it's a 7-day offer. So what's the point of that? Let me read it, actually. I'll read it here. The Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood unveiled the payout as part of a migration crackdown. I don't know what she'll wear here, but I don't know. But critics branded it a kick in the teeth for taxpayers, obviously. It comes as the latest figures show 2,688 migrants in 42 boats have made the channel crossing so far this year. A group was brought into the port of Ramsgate. That's jokes, man. Under the new plans, about 150 families whose asylum claims have already been rejected will be offered 10,000 a person, capped at 40,000 if they agree to leave voluntary. Well, it says about 150 families. We don't know how many. Well, it says there's so far. There's about 479 so far who've come. This year, about 2,688 migrants. So what's this going to do? Sorry. What is offering 150 families specifically 40,000 going to do? Oh man, that is stupid, man. Hey, listen, because somebody explains to me, what does that actually, what's that going to do? Like, what the hell is that going to do? Yeah, it's just, I understand. Look, I understand what's being said here. I mean, saying sorry, kick everybody out is problematic as well. But I mean, it's like, what the hell is that going to do? It's not going to do crap. Like, 150 people, families are basically going to get free money whilst more boats come in and more people. What are you going to do then? Are you going to extend that to more than 150 families? So you're basically going to give the entire budget of people's taxpayers' money to people coming on boats, so then they can go and inform their family members in other countries, so then they can come back and claim it as well. So you're easily paying out a good bill to people. You're paying for people to come in and pretend to be migrants. They don't even need to even bother going back. They just need to. You know what they will probably end up doing, right? They'll be like, okay, yeah, I'll go on. That's it. They go back basically halfway through the Mediterranean on their dinghy boats, and they stop there and just wait like a few minutes, and then go back around and see if they can claim it again. Oh man, yeah. I mean, well done, Shabna, you bloody idiot. Oh man, stupid, man. Stupid. Honestly, I don't know what they're doing with that. So but I'm not in agreement with, of course, dropping people off, like just setting up tons of planes, like, and just getting people out. Like, how much money is that going to cost? But I mean, neither. I mean, I'm not in cahoots with them just being like, oh yeah, I'm going to waste millions on people to come back here. Like, come on, dude. Oh man, if they were smart, I'm not even the most intelligent man on the planet, but I know that if they offer me 40,000 to go, I could just take it and then come back. Or I could just basically make a ring of it. I could just, go to, like, let's say they put me in Zimbabwe, even though I'm not from Zimbabwe. But I mean, let's say they throw me there, right? I can just basically harbor a dinghy of dudes, pack up the dinghy, and then make a ring of it. So that basically I will pretend that these are families. In fact, I will start breeding people. I will start, because they're saying families, right? So we'd have to breed people. And what we'll do is basically put them on boats, have them make up a sub-story of there being war in these lands, blah, blah, blah. They give them 40,000. We bring them back. We do it again. Next minute, we have completely destroyed Britain of house and home. It's just so stupid, man. Come on, man. Let's not be stupid. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to now finish it off because I did say Deuteronomy, right? I'm going to now finish it off with some insights that I got from Deuteronomy. Because Deuteronomy, for me, it's an interesting book. I said I was reading it before. And there's a few insights that I've got from it. So I just wanted to comment on those insights and I'll head off, actually. So, Deuteronomy, actually, we got to know the history of it, right? So, I mean, Deuteronomy is written basically toward the end of Moses' life. Moses, of course, has written the Pentateuch. The Pentateuch is commonly known as the 5 books of Moses, which would be Genesis, Leviticus, Exodus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. I think that'll be it. Yeah, Leviticus, Numbers, Exodus, Genesis, Deuteronomy. Yeah, so that's 5 books, right? And these are all attributed to Moses. But interestingly enough, it appears to be the case that the ending is either written by Moses, understanding where he would be buried, of course, by prophetic inquiry. Of course, the Holy Spirit's telling him this, and he's written his stuff down. And it seems to be injunctions at the end of it for keeping hold of the law or the Torah, as it would be commonly known. So it's probable that Moses wrote the books, the entire Pentateuch, just before he died. So his death, of course, being mentioned in there, was something he knew that would occur, and he knew the exact things that would occur when he dies, which is interesting. I take that position because I don't negate supernatural events. I'm not going to be like, oh, well, it's possible that Joshua wrote it afterwards. No, these are books attributed to Moses. Also, Jesus says in John 5 that Moses wrote about him. So Moses is the one who's writing this. It's not anybody else. People are copying this, but Moses is the original recipient and author of the 5 books of Moses. Anyway, we're at Deuteronomy 4:8. Now, Deuteronomy starts off with this, with a sort of recount or a sort of understanding of where, of course, the Israelites came from, their exodus. And basically, it starts off by talking about the expedition to take over certain lands. and to dominate certain people groups. That's what we're just talking about right now. And so it says this, Deuteronomy 4:8, and what nation is there so great that have statutes and judgments so righteous as all this law, which I set before you this day? The reason why I highlighted this is because a lot of times our enemies, especially those who are enemies of Christ and enemies of the Old Testament, of course, especially, they will say, well, hold on, look how bad these laws were. There was slavery, there was, of course, instances of warfare, this, that, and the other. But according to the gods of Israel, this statutes, these, of course, records were righteous, and they were righteous in amongst the nations, that the other nations didn't have these statutes. Now, there is, of course, another law whose name I've forgotten, from around the same time. And, these writings of a lawmaker from around this time seem to be very, of course, strict. Like, if you steal fruit, that's it, you're dead. Now, that's not an injunction in Deuteronomy at all. So it's kind of interesting how the author, Moses, considers these statutes to be more righteous than the other nations. How abominable would have the other statutes and judgments and laws been in comparison to the God Yahweh's? Deuteronomy 4:14 says, and he declared unto you this covenant which he commanded you to perform, even 10 commandments, and he wrote them upon 2 tables of stone. Evidently, the reason why I've got this is because it shows that the Lord God was present and actually before Moses. He wasn't just, of course, in the cloud somewhere, but he was actually speaking to Moses and he wrote them, which means it's more than likely. And obviously, within Trinitarian theology, we have Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. The Son is the one who appears here. So it's more than likely that Jesus was writing the 10 commandments in front of Moses on Mount Sinai. Deuteronomy 4:15, take ye therefore good heed unto yourselves, for you saw no matter of similitude. You saw no form on the day that the Lord spoke to you in Horeb, in the outer midst of the fire. Now, this is directed not to Moses. It's directed to the Israelites. The Israelites didn't see a form. That doesn't mean that Moses didn't see a form. He evidently did. You can find that in Numbers 25. But they didn't see the form. And I think the reason why is because obviously the Israelites were, of course, they loved a bit of the old idolatry, as you can see later on. Deuteronomy 4:23-24. Take heed unto yourselves lest you forget the covenant of the Lord your God, which he has made with you, and make you a graven image, or the likeness of anything which the Lord your God has forbidden you. For the Lord your God is a consuming fire, even a jealous God. It's interesting here that the term here, graven image, is referencing a created thing. It's not referencing something that's just merely an image that we can look through, like the Eastern Orthodox and Roman Catholics say. No, it's any form of image that is supposed to represent God. So images of Jesus, forbidden. And also it mentions he's a jealous God. Now there's righteous jealousy, and then there's envy. You can be righteously jealous. For example, if my wife goes around and hooks up with another man, like, I'm going to be jealous, right? But that's a righteous jealousy. There's nothing, of course, that's condemnable about that. I'm not coveting what I don't have. It's what I possess. And I have a right to have what I possess. And so because God loves Israel so much, he's saying to them, look, I will be jealous for you. I don't want you to be possessed by anybody else but me, because you are my first love. You're my firstborn. Nobody else is going to be the one who loves you more. And that's the kind of intimacy, by the way, that the God of Israel, which is the eternal God Yahweh, by the way, which is the true God, that's the kind of intimacy God's inviting us into. That even in the midst of what you may think is barbaric and wars and all this stuff, there's still this understanding that God is like, of course, a maid who, of course, is mourning her lost partner. Imagine that kind of stuff. It's like, where does that humanity come from? It's because that's how God's painted that picture in our minds for how much he loves us, of course, and how much he loved Israel. Deuteronomy 4:29. But if from there you shall seek the Lord your God, you shall find him if you shall seek him with all your heart and with all your soul. One of the commandments in the book of Matthew that Jesus Christ states is still continuing from here. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. Love your God with your heart and soul. The heart, of course, is the seat of desire. So we shouldn't be seeking to desire anything above Christ. And of course, the Bible says in the book of Proverbs that the human has been built in with a need for eternity. Things like love, things like, of course, happiness, joy. These are, of course, affectations, not affectations, but they're like, of course, how can I put it? They're like, of course, blurred reflections of what truly is love. And a lot of people don't find meaning in their lives, and they find no happiness in their lives. And many of them, of course, struggle to see where happiness can be found because they don't understand that it's rooted in this home, this eternal home with God. And for me growing up, of course, personally, like that's what I felt. I felt like I didn't have a home here. And it was when of course, I experienced Christ, that's when I realized where true love and true happiness is, even if I didn't understand it. And I still don't understand what it means to live in the kingdom of heaven. But it seems as if it is a place in which there is the fullness of what you want is there. It's like you're going home again, And nobody realizes if you've never been away from home for a long time, you've never missed your family for a long time, you'll never realize, or at least it'll be hard for you to understand what it feels like to be away from home, to go back to home again, and to miss home, to want to go back home. Not in the ethno-nationalist sense, though. Deuteronomy 4:34-35. Our God has a say to go and take him a nation from the midst of another nation, by temptations, by signs, and by wonders, and by war, and by a mighty hand, and by stretched out arm, and by great terrors, according to all that the Lord your God did for you in Egypt before our eyes. Unto you it was shown that you might know that the Lord, he is God, there is none besides him. It's interesting, actually, that this is a statement he's making. This is a statement that God is making. It's like, yes, by signs and wonders, I have shown myself to be the true God. And if you read later on, in fact, because the Israelites don't really learn anything, they still don't actually, but I mean, a lot of them. But I mean, if you read later on in 1 Samuel chapter 6, there was these Amalekites that are basically, they're bowing down to Dagon. And this big statue of Dagon's there, that's their God, that's the one they think that protects them. And the Ark of the Covenant is put in there, it's willed into there. And what happens is the hands of Dagon are ripped off by God. He rips off the hands of Dagon from this statue and he rips his head off. And they wake up and basically say, they go and see it. And they basically then, of course, ask the other towns to remove this Ark of the Covenant, just in case they harm their God any longer. So the whole thing is, this is what you got to understand in your minds, right? Understand, of course, they've just witnessed the God of Israel lop the head off of this statue, showing it not to be a God. And their response is, oh no, he's going to attack our God, get rid of him. Not, of course, reverence and bowing and realizing this is the true God. And, that isn't. But, it is what it is. It was what it is. And because he loves your fathers, therefore he chose their seed after them and brought you out in his sight with mighty power out of Egypt. Amen. Deuteronomy 4 verses 39. Know therefore this day and consider it in your heart that the Lord, he is God in heaven above and upon the earth beneath. There is no one else. This is a great point, right? Because when it comes to Trinitarian discourse, what's not really noted is, the amount of claims the Bible has to say about monotheism. There is one God. And of course, here the he would be identified as the Father. But again, does that negate the deity of the Son and the Spirit? No. Because what is considered deity and divinity is shared in the Trinity. What is considered monarchical head, this is according to Tertullian and Against Praxis, the monarchical head always remains the Father. In fact, you'll find in the New Testament, God will refer to the Father as the only true God, John chapter 17, verses 3. But he's not saying that in negation of himself. And this is why we've got to understand, although complex, we have to understand that divinity is shared between Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. In as much as God's reason, his mind, and also his spirit are possessive of him. And of course, are not the person of him. He remains his person. But of course, his reason, his mind, whatever you want to use it, and his spirit, of course, they're in love with him in unity. And there's this whole big, if you read Josh Sijuade's Modern Trinity, there's this whole big question about what love means in the Trinity. that God is perfect. He's ase, which means, of course, independent. And that also means that he, of course, isn't relying upon others. He's not relying upon others for love. He shares love. He had love before the world began. That's what John chapter 17 verses 3 states. Sorry, John chapter 17 verses 24 states. Sorry, EW999 says, but are most illegal immigrants just people who stay over their work visa or isn't visa? The boats are a distraction to fuel hate or student visa. I mean, that is a point to be made. I mean, back when, of course, in my earlier working days, there was a time where I was working around people who were obviously on student visas who would evidently stayed there welcome. And you know, you could tell they had. You know, so it is an interesting correlation. What, like, is it just majority of them are people on student visas? I mean, for example, in my area, I'm seeing a growth of what is known as Chinese people or Japanese people. Seeing more of a growth of them than others. In fact, there's more of them now. And, you know, the Chinese, I like the Chinese because they just get on with what they're doing. They're not invasive. They're not trying to hate. They're just doing what they got to do. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't have any problem with people coming in. It's just like how that factors into everyday life and what it means to be British. And I think it's just insecure of people who are British, especially people white British, to be like, oh, well, you know, these people need to leave right now because blah, 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 we don't have a voice. You do have a voice. You've always had a voice. You've had a voice from day dot. You know, it's just this mindset of, oh, we don't have a voice. On the opposite, of course, is false, that, oh, we need to, of course, pander to Black Lives Matter and, of course, give black people alone access to this and that. No, like, everybody should have to, of course, engage in some form of, you know, engagement in society. But I mean, come on, it's all bogus, man. It's all bogus. But anyway, well, let me go back to the word of our God. No, therefore, this day, consider your heart, there's nobody, Lord. Yeah, exactly. The Lord alone is God. Deuteronomy chapter 5, verses 8 to 9. Thou shalt not make you a graven image or the likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the waters beneath. Of course. You shall not bow yourself to them nor serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God. And again, God's restating what is an obvious fact. And here's why I think this continues, is because within the mind of the apostles, especially when you read the book of Acts chapter 17, when Paul enters Athens, when he looks at these images that are being made, he doesn't say, oh, of course, they're just praying through them. He's speaking to Jews and he's speaking to Grecians. He's saying to them, look, God's not made with hands. We don't do that. So iconoclasm is entrenched into a Christian understanding and a biblical understanding about Christianity. The Christian movement wasn't one of iconodualism. This is the later stuff. So Christians don't bow to statues. We don't even have statues in our churches. This is not, you know, images like that in our churches is not something we should have or ought to have. Nor should we definitely be affording them any veneration. It says here, should not bow to them nor serve them. Now, these words may be two different words, but they have the same connotations. Bowing to them is showing them reference by a form, of course, of, of course, saying hello to them, by giving them, you know, showing them, of course, some love. You know, and of course, serving them means, of course, laturo in the Greek, which is the term used in Septuagint, is going to refer to worshiping them. And we shouldn't worship them. And it's kind of interesting because when Catholics used to say, well, I don't bow to the statues or worship them. It's like, well, you do. First of all, they do bow to them. They make processions. But for God, serve here is just going to mean worship in a reverential way, in a religious way. And what are they doing with images of Mary, the Catholics and these sort of folks? They're worshiping her. If I can show images, and I have done so on this channel before, of the types of worship that the Hindus and the Buddhists do to their statues, and it looks no different to what you're doing, then evidently what you're doing is akin to that. It doesn't matter whether you personally think I'm not doing this. It's about how it looks on the outside. And we are to abstain from all appearances of evil. You know, in the mindset of, and I use this as an analogy, it's a bit crude, but in the mindset of the Roman Catholic, they'll say, oh, well, I'm not worshiping her, you know, because I'm not doing X, X, and X. I'm not praying to, or of course, I'm not, you know, lighting candles to, and I don't view her as God. But it's like the adulterer who cheats on his wife by, of course, meeting up with a woman, it's like him using the excuse and basically saying, well, I only put a tip in. It's like, I mean, no, you committed adultery. Oh, I only put the tip in. Well, I didn't bust. I didn't bust. That's what it's basically like. So we need to understand, as Christians, we don't do this. We don't bow to images. We don't afford processions for images like the pagans do, and the Roman Catholics and Eastern Orthodox do. We don't do that. Mary cannot save us. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Deuteronomy 6:4. Simple. We've heard it before. It's the great Shema. Deuteronomy 6:16. You shall not tempt the Lord your God as ye tempted him in Massa. Notice this is actually being copied. Not copied, of course, but this is actually being stated and quoted by Jesus in the book of Matthew chapter 4. So it's an interesting correlation there. Deuteronomy 7:2-4. And when the Lord your God shall deliver them before you, you shall smite them and utterly destroy them. You shall make no covenant with them, nor show them mercy. Neither shall you make marriages with them. Your daughter shall not give unto his son, nor his daughter shall take unto you thy son. For they will turn away your son from following me, and they will serve other gods. So will the anger of the Lord be kindled against you and destroy you suddenly. It's kind of interesting because this is the whole contention we have with Numbers 31, is that when read, it appears to state, and this is a command from Moses, to go and of course take the young women, or the Taf Nasar, which is basically young women anyway. Take the young women, because they didn't really have a term for teenager back then. So yeah, take the young women, of course, and leave them alive for yourselves. So there's this whole question of, does the Bible teach sort of pederasty or something? Which it doesn't. It's never taught that. But within the context of Numbers 31, is the understanding that the Israelites had already done that. So they had already, in the book of Numbers 25, and this is what you need to have, of course, the cultural context, you need to have the context of the Bible. They'd already decided to go and mate with the Midianitish women. The Midianitish women were the targets in Numbers 31. What were they doing? They were trying to mate with them, and they were doing it in a religious way. So it wasn't just they were mating with them, they'd mate with them specifically outside of the, of course, temple of worship, specifically outside, which is a bit lewd. And you could imagine, right, that's not a nation that, and this is the Israelites as well, that's not a nation that we would consider today to be of any sort of repute. They're a bit weird. We would look down upon. Imagine you're going outside a mosque and you see two dudes going at it. You'd be like, what the hell? You wouldn't be like, oh yeah, I'm going to enjoy this and engage with it. But that's what the Israelites were doing. So they were punished. The Israelites were punished with, I think it was about 50,000 or 20,000 men were plagued with an illness. And then God says to wipe out the Midianitish people because they had enticed the Israelites to engage in this. Now, this is the sort of reiteration of the covenant that God's saying to these people, look, do this, then you're going to get plagued. So Israelites were not to make marriages with those outside of their own nation. Unless they, of course, became an Israelite. That's a different ballgame. Deuteronomy 7:25. But thus you shall deal with them, you shall destroy their altars and break down their images, cut down their groves and burn their graven images with fire. Now, we don't see here an indication that it matters whether these images were, of course, being used, for as windows to the divine or not. All it says was, God was like, cut these down. Don't make these images. Burn them all. So iconoclasm is natural to the biblical interpretation. I think with later church fathers and their assumptions about images being used in certain worship services, false. It's bogus. Deuteronomy 7:9. Now therefore, know therefore that the Lord your God, he is God, the faithful God, which keeps covenant and mercy with them that love him and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations. I just like that quote. But we shouldn't be legalistic. Understand, of course, these laws themselves relate to Near Eastern Israel. They don't relate to a Christian new covenant sense. But there are laws that do, and we have to understand that. based upon the context of the New Testament. You shall not be affrighted at them. You shall not be scared of them, for the Lord your God is among you, a mighty God and terrible. King James Version doesn't really render that well. So it's basically, he's scary. Basically, you should be afraid of God, not of these dudes. The graven images of their gods, Deuteronomy 7:25, the graven images of their gods you shall burn with fire. You shall not desire the silver or gold that is on them, nor take it to you, lest you be snared therein, for it is an abomination to the Lord your God. So when you go into a Catholic church, what are you seeing? You're seeing images of Mary. You'll see a gold image sometimes, some of them. Like the Vatican has statues, marble statues. I've been in the Vatican, by the way. As a statue, like gargoyle figures. No joke. I saw a demon in there as well when I went in there. Gargoyle figures. I just felt disgusting standing there. And I was wondering, why do I feel like this? And at first I thought, oh, maybe the devil's in it. I mean, but then again, the devil was in most places. I don't feel like that wherever I am. Why is it specifically here that I just don't like this? And it's because it's a whorehouse. Because imagine, like, whores, a whore would be somebody, and this is how, of course, God describes idolatry. A whore would be somebody who who sleeps with men alongside their husband. In the most basic sense. If I go out there and I go and bait, like, actually like a woman, that would make me whore. So, I mean, like, God refuses to accept that. And so within me, the Spirit of God was angry at this place. And I walked in there and I wasn't happy about it either. I felt a real disturbance in my spirit there. I haven't been to the Vatican since last year. I do not want to go back in there ever again. And I shall not be ever by the Lord's grace. I think the comments are coming in late, brother. I'm fully locked into the Bible stuff. Fair enough. Yeah, lots of imagery. Of course, yeah. If you want to, I mean, you can sort of speed yourself. I think there's an image on YouTube, from what I understand, bro, where you can actually skip it a bit upwards so that you can, because I don't know why it's coming in a bit late. I don't know what's going on with it. But anyway, Deuteronomy 8, verses 3-4, and he humbled you and suffered you to hunger and fed you with manna, which you know not. It's the King James Version, man. Can I change the version on this? Let's put it NKJV. I like the new I like the new King James Version, man. Okay. Why NKJV this? Oh yeah, I have. Okay, cool. Okay, so I was at 7 something. Okay, there we go. So he humbled you and allowed you to hunger and fed you with manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, that he might make you know that man shall not live by bread alone, but Lord, loosen my tongue. But man lives by every word that proceeds from the mouth of the Lord. Your garments did not wear you out, nor did your foot swell these 40 years. It's kind of interesting. This is again a quote from the book of Matthew, chapter 4. Man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. And that shows that God's word has preeminence before anything else. Deuteronomy 8:5, you should know in your hearts that as a man chastens his son, so the Lord your God chastens you. This is actually quoted again in the book of Hebrews, chapter 12. And that's true. God does chasten us. He does correct us as a man corrects his son. Now, obviously, a loving father would not correct his son for no reason. He corrects his son for the purposes of his son learning from these mistakes and then growing. Deuteronomy 8:18, and you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant, which he swore to your fathers as it is this day. It is God who has preeminence. We can't ignore that. And, oftentimes people are like, Calvinist. I mean, I don't take that name because I refuse to call myself after another man other than Christ. So I reject that name wholeheartedly. I don't care, of course, whether, of course, my doctrines would be considered that. I'm not calling myself that name. I used to, and I've just repented of it. I don't want to call myself that name. It doesn't make any sense. I don't follow John Calvin, so why am I claiming myself a name of a man I don't follow? I don't follow this man. Okay. But in hindsight, it would be similar to Tulip or the doctrines of grace, as they'll be called, which affirm that God has preeminence. God is providential. And it's by his will things are done. Deuteronomy 8:19 says, "Then it shall be if you by any means forget the Lord your God and follow other gods and serve them and worship them, I testify against you this day that you shall surely perish." So the prerequisite, of course, for true life, true happiness, true abundance is not serving and worshiping other gods, Catholics and Eastern Orthodox. Deuteronomy 9:4, "Do not think in your heart after the Lord your God has cast them out before you, saying, because of my righteousness, the Lord has brought me into possession this land. But it's because of the wickedness of these nations that the Lord is driving them out from before you." And I like this because it really shows that God wasn't doing this for any racist intentions. There's a quote from Richard Dawkins that accuses God of being racist because he favored the land of Israel. But look at the reasons he gives. It says clearly, it's like, because of, do not think in your heart, he's saying to Israel, do not think in your heart that the Lord's taken these nations out before you because of your own righteousness. He didn't see them and look and say, oh, you've got this righteousness. And that's how we should think. That's why in a lot of ways, once saved, always saved, or eternal security is not something we should be like pridefully being like, oh, well, look at me, I'm saved. It's not, there's no, you can't boast in that. There's nothing you did to attain to this. You should have awe and, of course, love and respect and gratitude for the one who's got you out of hell. That's it. That's the only thing a believer can do. Trust in Christ, of course, another thing, but you know what I mean. Because of my righteousness, the Lord's brought me out to possess the land, but it's because of the wickedness of those nations that the Lord's driving out for you. Now, this is how I know really that when it comes to the destruction of many of these nations, whether it be the Midianites, the Amalekites, of course, 1 Samuel 15:3, Numbers 31, that it's because God knew how wicked they were. And I think that if God's saying that these are wicked, they must have done abominable things that he did not agree with. That's where, of course, when God is righteous, this is what many atheists don't like. When God is righteous and he does the right thing, they insult him, they mock him. When he doesn't do anything, they're like, oh, why isn't God stopping these barbarous people attacking and killing babies? Why is he not doing it? But when he does it, they complain. I also believe that when it comes to a lot of these injunctions where people look at, let's say 1 Samuel 15:3, right? Which says, I'm going to go to 1 Samuel 15:3, right? And when I was actually younger, this was one of the more harder ones to understand, because I was like, what do you mean by this? Like, how do I understand this fully? I wasn't completely out of the water saying, you know what, I'm leaving this. I just didn't understand it. Obviously, this was 6 years ago. I learned since then. But it says it, 1 Samuel 15:3. Now, you read this to anybody, they're going to be like, oh my days, that's shocking. It says, now go and attack Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have. Do not spare them, but kill both man, woman, infant, and nursing child, ox and sheep, and camel and donkey. Now, it's in the modern day mindset where, of course, these things do not simply occur, where there is no such thing as corporate genocide. Or at least it's not something that's here in this present time. This is really, people are looking at that, this is bad. This is really bad. Oh no. But for me, I look at it from the perspective of God has a righteous reason for doing this. And the reasons he gives himself is these nations were abominable. Also, God knowing the future, God understanding the future of all these individuals, including the baby and the nursing child, knowing that they'll grow up to do the same abominable things as it stands. So the whole dilemma of, would you kill baby Hitler? You're sure you can argue on both sides. Like, so you could argue, for example, well, he's not done anything yet. We have to, of course, allow that to run. But what if you're certain that he will do it, regardless of whether you do it or not? Doesn't matter. You can't change any event of the past. There will still be the final solution. He will still gas 1 million Jews, women, and children. You could stop that. What would you do? And this is where these ethical dilemmas more come to light here, is that there are ethical dilemmas you have to deal with that can't be ignored. Whereas God simply does this, and you're looking at it from a linear perspective, being like, oh, it's killed a baby, this or that. God's looking beyond that. God's looking, of course, at the potential for these people to be an invasive force that kills, murders, commits bestiality, which is basically raping animals, murders their own infants to a false god named Molech, and it's a destruction upon the earth. Now, if we could see them doing that, then we would understand, of course, how far it goes for God. And if we could actually see the future like God does, and see the intrinsic nature of these people, how wicked they were, then of course we would do this. But it's hard for us to comprehend from our sort of temporal point of view why he would allow, for example, infants and nursing children to be killed, or even oxen, sheep, and camel and donkey. And that's, of course, mentioned here as well. And I think the reason why is because of the forms of bestiality that were occurring amongst these nations with the oxes and the sheep and the camels and donkeys. To wipe out their memory from the entire earth would have been a mercy for them, but it also would have been a just thing. And also, I don't see, and I've yet to hear from an argument other than an emotional one, because people don't understand how to do basic ethics. I don't see anything ontologically wrong with God wiping out a nation or even calling for others to do so. Considering he's the author of life and he's the one who establishes it, he has the right to take it. He does it all the time. Natural disasters, for example. And I speak to Muslim friends sometimes, especially on TikTok, where they're like, "Oh, look at this, kill women, babies, donkeys." And I ask them, "Okay, so you believe in the doctrine of Al-Qaeda, yes or no?" And they'll be like, "Okay, yes." Some of them be like, "I don't know what that is," so I have to explain to them what their religion teaches. Basically, they believe in divine decree. So when it comes to the mass killings that occur in various countries to Muslim babies, that is by the divine hand of Allah, right? And they don't really have a response. Or most of them say, "Oh, well, that isn't the case. We've got free will." And I'll be like, "No, not with Al-Qaeda. That's divine decree. You don't have free will." And sometimes it even takes taking them through their own sources. Like the Tafsir are very clear on this. Ibn Abbas is very clear on this. Al-Jalalain's clear on this as well. There's a whole conversation there to be had where, in all honesty, if you're really gonna come from this type of argument, say, "Oh, it's bad. Look at this. Kill women, the infant adult." God has to be instrumental in the Islamic system when it comes to any sort of deaths of an infant, whether it be disease, grape. Sorry, I'm saying grape. I'm thinking this is TikTok. Rape. He has to be. In fact, the Quran, the Hadith say that he's created a portion of adultery of all people. Now they can say, "Oh, well, I don't accept that school of thought," but it's still a school of thought within Islam, which is something which is to be held to by most scholars of Islam. It's not something you ignore, although they won't come out and rightly and ultimately say, God caused this rape of a child. That has to be the natural consequence of fatalistic determinism. So you could argue from both sides, really, that essentially something's really wrong here. But I don't see anything wrong with this, is all I'm saying. That's my opinion. I'm taking it. If God permits it, then it is holy and just, and there's a reason why he does it. I don't think God does anything, like a warlord does for the purposes of just gaining control randomly. I think he does righteous things. Then the Lord delivered to me 2 tablets of stone written by the finger of God. We've already read that. Indeed, heaven and the highest heavens belong to the Lord your God, also the earth with all that is in it. And this is something that people fail to understand, is that God owns all of this. It's not something that we're owed. Deuteronomy 10, 16, 17. Therefore circumcise the foreskin of your heart and be stiff-necked no longer. For the Lord your God is the God of gods, Lord of lords, the great God, mighty and awesome. He shows no partiality nor takes a bribe. Obviously, he's not, he can't be bribed. You can't just slip him a quick tenner. He's not going to do that. But the most interesting comment is circumcise the foreskin of your heart. Now that is quoted, I think it is in the book of Acts chapter 15. And that really is speaking about changing your heart, seeking to serve Christ, seeking to serve God. Now, I think that's it for that side. I don't know why I had so much other ones as well. I tend to riff on a bit. My bad. I think it's been 2 hours and 29 minutes. If you want me to do, it's up to you. If you want me to do a further video explaining my opinions on various other controversial passages of the Bible, I could do that. For example, I was reading Joshua and the retaking of Ai, and it seems abrupt, and God is like, yeah, don't pity them, don't pity them, destroy them. And if you don't have already the understanding that there is a atemporal God who sees all things, knows all things, and is able to judge righteously and holistically, then you're going to think, oh man, that's not good. So no, let me know your thoughts on this. Oh, come on, what's going on here? Let me click this off. Yeah, let me know your thoughts on this. But I thought I'm just going to do a longer stream on here and just show you guys what I'm going through. There is also, if you are really disturbed by this stuff, I would suggest reading a book by Paul Copan, because obviously I don't explain things properly, maybe. Sometimes I don't. And he has a book called Is God a Moral Monster? And that really deals with the more intrinsic nature of God throughout the Old Testament, rather than just course Deuteronomy. And you will get this if you're a Christian, if you're born again Christian, you will get these assaults placed upon you. You will get assaults when it comes to your idea of God. You'll be told that God is a moral monster, that God is not, of course, good in any way. You'll be told that God has done this, that, and the third. And unless you've got the spiritual, cultural, historical context to back you up, you're not going to know anything. So I really, I hope this, of course, encourages you, EW9, as well as others as well, to really start thinking about how to answer these questions, if you can, and even for yourselves to, of course, maintain right conduct. The Bible says to study to show yourself approved. So if you're not already grounded in Christ, like I'm grounded in Christ, I'm absolutely 100% certain that God is righteous, God is good, God is holy and just, but of course that includes wrath as well. And God is somebody we should fear, honor, and respect. And that Jesus Christ is His Son, there's a Trinity. I'm at that stage where I'm not going to be turned. There's no. If there was ever a chance, maybe it would have been like 6 years ago, but it's impossible now. By God's grace, by the way. But anyway, I'm going to click off. Anyway, God bless.